Chapter 1330. Coco was very touched to hear such comforting words. But just as he was about to hug little Spade back, he glanced up and saw his captain smile. The meaning behind that smile was simple. "If you dare to hug me back, I'll break your paws." Coco was shocked. "Little Spade, you can console me, but why are you hugging me? Do you want Captain to tear me apart?" With that, Coco stopped and calmed himself down. As expected, compared to the internet attacks, he was more afraid of Captain's gaze. Bojo felt hurt. Shouldn't little Sissy be extremely touched at this moment? Why was he so afraid? Bojo was still raising her brows. The atmosphere in the team had changed completely. Everyone knew why Coco had such a reaction. They were all suppressing their laughter. Lin Feng let out a long breath and said, "Deal with it." Yes, since it happened, they had to solve it. This was their usual style. They would deal with it when they couldn't solve it. Besides, they believed Feng Yi was already in the process. As for the process, they would have to wait until dawn. From 3 a.m. to 8 a.m., this was the most difficult time. Bojo suggested, "Go and rest, put aside the training. Especially at this time, you have to be more alert in front of the media. I'm guessing old Fox Feng has some plans. Why don't we wait for his call?" "Sure." Yin Wuyao was the first to stand up. He reached out and massaged the back of his neck. "It's important to relax before the match. If you can't sleep, you can play cards." It's fine to play cards." Feng Shang blushed. "I am good at cards." Bojo laughed. "Then let's play cards." "I'll be in the same group as Brother Mo." Qin Mo arched a brow. "Are you sure I know how to play?" "Brother Mo, don't worry. Even if you lost your memory, no one is better than you when it comes to scheming." Bojo lowered her voice. Qin Mo smiled. "Is that a compliment?" "Of course." Bojo adjusted her collar. "I'll help you draw the cards later. I won't brag about anything else, but my luck is really good." 10 minutes later. Qin Mo glanced at the cards that a certain someone had drawn and arched a brow. "Is this what you meant by having good luck?" Bojo, who had drawn 3 useless tiles in a row, was frustrated. Why wasn't this mahjong giving her any face? "Brother Mo, actually, this isn't a big deal. If you touch more, you can hit 13 youngsters." Bojo tried to clear her name. Qin Mo scoffed, replying slowly, "By the time you're done with the 13, the others will have already won." Bojo. Why did he have to say something that everyone knew? "Brother Mo, didn't you say you don't know how to play?" Qin Mo arched a brow and glanced at the cards on the table lazily. His voice was faint. "It's such a simple game. You can learn it after 1 round." With that, he held onto her wrist with one hand and reached out with the other. He picked up a card and pushed it forward. "Pick yourself, all colors." Everyone was stunned. Lin Feng felt even more devastated. "Didn't I play this card in the last round?" "Captain, why didn't you eat who back then?" "Is that so?" Qin Mo replied nonchalantly, "I guess I didn't know how to play just now." "I wouldn't believe you." He was obviously trying to pick himself. Lin Feng scratched his head and glanced over at Baby Feng, who had said he was a thief. He was still arranging the cards. He face-bombed. Was this called a thief? It seemed like Baby Feng didn't understand the word thief well enough. Bojo was delighted, starting to collect the money. Lin Feng rolled up his sleeves, preparing for a counterattack on the 3rd round. Who knew that as soon as the cards were placed on the table, she heard the person opposite her speak. Even her tone was very casual. "Do you know why your luck is so bad?" Bojo glanced over. "Why?" Because you hugged someone you shouldn't have. Chi Nemo raised his hand casually, throwing out a card. Everyone, they had been wondering why their captain hadn't mentioned anything. So this was what he was waiting for. The person who shouldn't have been hugged shrunk his shoulders, biting the bunny's ear. He had a feeling that their captain would remember this for a long time. As expected. This was the third time Coco had been intercepted by his previous boss, Chi Nemo. He started to realize that his captain wasn't trying to win money, he was trying to attack him. Anyone who played mahjong would understand. That kind of joy when you were about to push your cards and announce your victory. But suddenly, someone was in front of you. You would feel like your entire life was gloomy. And it wasn't just the first time, it was the third time. 3 times. Coco was starting to miss the good things about his fans. Compared to his little plushies, the captain was simply not human. Oh. His teammates who were playing mahjong at the same table had to hold back their laughter. The atmosphere was exceptionally harmonious. Yin Wuyao was right. It was right to relax before a big competition. At least compared to before, the layer of alienation on the surface was gone. Chi Nemo won just like that. Some people even felt that their captain had never lost his memory. In that instant, he seemed to have calmed down. Even though there were too many people in this world who didn't understand and cursed. But there was one person. Ever since he created Supreme Alliance, he had never given up. He understood your passion even though he never said it. He became the support of the entire team. Even now, those people were shouting for him to leave. We all said that you would get what you give. In reality, this was wrong. Giving didn't mean you would get anything. It meant that you didn't let down what you fought for. The game started again. It was as though all emotions were swept away. Grandfather Butler even prepared beer. Everyone took a sip, flipped a peanut in their mouth, and continued to play mahjong, enjoying themselves. Bojo looked at this scene and found an excuse to go to the washroom. Grandfather Butler didn't say anything. After he followed her out, he said, "The laptop is ready, it's in your bedroom." Since she planned to hack into the network, she wouldn't let anyone see. Bojo turned her body, moving the USB flash drive and pressing both hands on the pure black keyboard. The crackling sound was so fast that no one could tell what she was doing. The only thing that could be seen was a letter flashing on the screen. Z, then came the code. 2 posts. As expected, it was the same IP. Bojo looked at the results and was even more certain of her guess. She continued to search for the IP address. Final destination, Jiang City, Xinghong Apartment, Unit 8, Building 6, 603. Bojo followed the IP address and found the location, directly hacking into the opponent's computer. At this moment, Quan didn't know. He had just ordered takeout and was planning to eat while watching the show. Now, the internet was fighting. No matter how united a team was, the fans might not necessarily like everyone in the team, so they could only fight. Who cares about the overall situation? Quan laughed and planned to post another post. But for some reason, he couldn't operate it. It wasn't a problem with the account. Maybe the account could be banned. But he had many other accounts. Why couldn't he operate the others? Not only couldn't he operate it, but he couldn't even log in. It kept showing that it was a page error. What the hell is going on? Quan only noticed the obvious abnormality but didn't know when the camera function of the computer was turned on. It automatically entered his live broadcast room. And in that room, there was only one message. It was the chat record between him and a stranger. This chat record appeared on the internet in the form of a screenshot. Everyone was stunned. They were obviously looking for trouble with the Supreme Alliance. And it was premeditated. They even dared to sow discord. Some of the fans finally calmed down. They thought about it. At such a time, they still came to the official site to cause trouble. This was obviously helping the black belt. After some people realized this, they froze and broke out in cold sweat. Some people still couldn't figure it out, but fortunately, the truth was out. Gradually, some attentive fans started to notice something. I was wondering why this netizen wouldn't let go of Almighty Chin. So it's because he has a grudge. Grudge? Why do you say that? Everyone's first reaction to that picture would be to find out what the two of them were talking about. But one of them should be recognized by the netizens. Isn't that the live streamer Quan who played games with Almighty Chin and won by luck? Later, after he died in the room, he was tortured by Almighty Chin and was killed as soon as he came out of the spring. His gaming experience was terrible to a certain extent. No wonder he tried so hard to influence. Everything else aside, I just hope that the fans of the Supreme Alliance will think about this matter and what we should do. Almighty Chin has indeed lost his memory. The organizing committee can't not make a decision. We are upset, but the Supreme Alliance must be even more upset. I played basketball in school. Although it's different from esports, but in any competitive event, how can they play without the support of the entire team? I can even understand how much psychological pressure they are under at this time. Do you think Almighty Chin still has a chance to participate? Just thinking about this makes me very upset. But no matter what, I will go to the venue and buy tickets because I understand that waiting for them is the only way to support them. The person who posted this never thought that there would be a day when his post would gain so many fans. Feng Yi was right about one thing. There were people like that. But people like that also needed to be driven. People kept coming out and changing things bit by bit. Although it couldn't suppress Quan's post for the time being. But a single spark could start a prairie fire. And Quan, who did these things, only realized that his actions had been exposed half an hour later. He wanted to explain in a panic but realized that his live broadcast room had long been turned on. The number of people watching online was unprecedentedly high and directly saw his expression. At that moment, he knew that he was finished. Perhaps in their circle, the bottom line was very low. But there was one thing that people hated to play tricks. This was something that all the netizens wouldn't forgive. Moreover, he used tricks to frame a professional team that was about to win glory for the country. No one would forgive him. From stealing Chin Mo's move to not admitting to it to this intentional action. This was simply challenging the most basic bottom line of a person. In an instant, the public opinion on the internet changed. Quan was scolded to the point that he didn't dare to do a live broadcast. At first, he complained that he was wronged and said that he was confused. He only did it when others said that. Now that he thought about it, he was simply being used. Would Bojo fall for this? This was the biggest joke in the world. The main culprit was someone else. But an accomplice was also a type of murderer. How could he say that he wasn't guilty when it was already carried out? She wasn't the Almighty and wouldn't consider so much. But there was one point. Everyone in the family was gaming properly and preparing for the competition. You came up with one plan after another and still say that you were wronged. Do you understand this saying? The one who started it first was cheap. After dealing with Quan, she didn't turn off her computer. Instead, she continued to dig, intending to dig out the culprit. But because of this, Bojo had prepared herself. Fan Jia was already prepared. After briefing Quan, she went offline early. She used a computer from a small internet cafe in an alley, so it was easy to clean up the traces. Bojo found the place but was aware that the computer had been turned off. Before it was turned off, it had been processed in detail. There was only one person who had such conditions, liked to use such methods, and was still haunting, Fan Jia. Bojo glanced at the screen. She curled her fingers and knocked on the table. In the Golden Triangle, she had placed all her attention on the Almighty, including how to get rid of his mistrust and murderous intent and how to stick to him. But she hadn't paid attention to the situation over there. After all, Kawang was already dead. The organization had been disbanded and many of its members had been sent to China. Even the poppies had been burned, leaving nothing behind. It was to prevent the darkness from rising again. Fan Jia hadn't been caught. Bo Jiu frowned slightly. What followed was a vague sense of unease. She wasn't sure what she was feeling uneasy about. She stood up and was about to light a cigarette. But before she could reach for it, someone pushed open the door and walked in. My sugar daddy is really something. Of all things, why did you learn to smoke? There wasn't a hint of anger in that cold voice. It was so familiar that Bo Jiu paused. She finally knew what she was feeling uneasy about. In fact, in this world, other than her little princess Qin, what else could make her feel uneasy? What's wrong? Qin Mo hadn't thought much of his words, but when he saw Bo Jiu's face, his fingers stilled. Is this guy unhappy? His words were usually more vicious, but he had never seen such an expression on her face. What was going on? That was Qin Mo's first reaction. He didn't even have time to think about it. Bo Jiu could hear the concern in his voice. She smiled. Nothing, I just suddenly craved candy and couldn't find it. That's why I wanted to smoke. Qin Mo glanced at her, his voice calm. Come over. Chapter 1331. Bo Jiu walked over. The moment she walked over, she was pulled into his embrace. She could smell the faint scent of mint and tobacco. It seemed as though even after an entire night, he would still feel refreshed. He didn't seem like someone who had just left the poker table. There's no sugar this time, there's artificial warmth, do you want it? Qin Mo's voice was faint. Bo Jiu chuckled. Can I give you another kiss? Dream on. Qin Mo hugged her in his arms. After rejecting her, he lowered his lids and planted a light kiss on the top of her head. Bo Jiu stilled, hugging him with a slight smile. Even the air she breathed in was sweet. The people around the table were smart enough not to ask where their captain had gone. At the start, they were still in a heated discussion. Everyone's mind was preoccupied with this matter, so it was impossible for them to fall asleep. At around 4 p.m., Feng Yi called to inform them that there was a change in the public opinion and for them to rest. Lin Feng couldn't believe his ears. After all, under normal circumstances, after such an incident, it would take 2 days for the heat to subside. He hadn't expected the change to happen so quickly. Feng Yi didn't hide it from him. Someone helped us and found the person who posted it. The 2 posts came from the same IP and the person who posted it was the streamer who provoked you guys. Lin Feng's eyes widened. Should I say the netizens are too capable? They aren't netizens. Rao Rong, who was standing at the side, suddenly spoke up, glancing upstairs with an enigmatic smile. It might be a hacker who fought for justice. Feng Yi chuckled. Probably. With the change in the public opinion, everyone felt relieved. Feng Shang stuttered as he asked his brother, Then, will Captain be able to participate in the competition? I don't know yet, it depends on the committee's decision. Feng Yi was logical. This was related to his identity as a businessman. Some of the influence could be eliminated, but he wasn't sure what the committee would decide. The only thing he was sure of was that no news was the best news. The committee was also considering. The meeting was scheduled for the next day. Supreme Alliance still had a chance. Feng Yi rubbed his temples, continuing, oh right, is Yao Yao still there? Yes. Give her the phone. All right. Shui Yao Yao took the phone in confusion. Feng Yi chuckled and said, the competition is coming up soon. This is the last interview for the team. It's a solo interview and they will definitely ask about what happened during this period of time. Get ready tomorrow. The interview will be at 9 in the morning. I'll pick you up then. Shui Yao Yao was confused. Me? Captain, Uncle Ian, and God Rao are all here. Me? Was she suitable? She had no experience, and her mechanics were not the best in the team. You're the only girl other than Little Spade. It's not convenient for her to come out, and young Master Qin can't do the interview. Don't worry, I'll be by your side during the interview, Feng Yi said in a well-ironed suit. Shui Yao Yao nodded after a moment. I understand, CEO Feng. Don't worry, I'll prepare well. For the last time. She wanted to speak up for Highness Zhou, for the captain, and for the team. Everyone sitting in front of the card table seemed to know this. The captain might not be able to play. Because his amnesia was a fact. It was destined to be a sleepless night. Even Bojo couldn't sleep well, even though Qin Mo was within her reach. She furrowed her brows. She didn't know why, but she dreamt of the time when she had left when they were young. She had leaned against the car window, wanting to take one last look at him. But she had forgotten that the night before, they had gotten into an argument. In 2 days, it would be the Chinese New Year. He must be preparing to return to China for Chinese New Year. He must be packing his luggage in his room. Why would he be waiting for her in the courtyard? That was why she had been so depressed that day. They had parted because of an argument. At that time, Bojo had thought that if they had parted happily, they might have been able to maintain communication. But when she had sneaked back to take a look, he had disappeared. The scene in her dream made Bojo grab Qin Mo's hand instinctively. She tightened her grip. Qin Mo's eyes deepened. What exactly was she dreaming about? Was she that sad? Qin Mo reached out and lifted her chin. After caressing it, he leaned forward and planted a kiss on her lips. This was the little gangster's favorite. But this time, it didn't change. Qin Mo looked at her face. It felt as though there was a rock pressing down on his chest. It was unusually irritating. That was enough, she was just a prey. You have already invested too much attention on her. That was enough. That was what he thought, but he hugged her, the kiss deepening. His motive was to wake someone up. Bojo was indeed awake. When she realized that the Almighty was kissing her, she paused and wanted to return it. But Qin Mo reached out to stop her. Tell me, what did you dream about? In America, we were still young. We separated after a fight and I sneaked back to look for you. It was a pity that you had already returned. Bojo pursed her lips. Perhaps it was because of her small and tender face that even someone like Qin Mo could comfort her. It was just a dream. It wasn't a dream, it was real. Bojo looked into his eyes. It really happened. So, Brother Mo, promise me something. Don't leave me, alright? I'm so good-looking and rich. I can even take revenge for you in the game. Where are you going to find such a good sugar daddy? Qin Mo replied slowly, the points you mentioned are easy to find, but it isn't easy to find someone as thick-skinned as you. Bojo. She thought he had become gentler when he took the initiative to kiss her. As expected, gentler wasn't the word used on the Almighty. That's why I don't intend to waste any more effort. Qin Mo reached out to pinch her face. Coincidentally, I like your thick skin. Bojo smiled, reaching out to hug his waist. She wanted to say that it was fine if he didn't regain his memory. It would be fine as long as he was by her side. But she was worried that with his personality, he wouldn't be able to regain his memory. Thus, she decided to forget it. It was better to be together like this. This time, it wasn't a nightmare. He held her in his arms and pressed her head against his shoulder. He had no intention of letting go. The two of them were good-looking to begin with. Their posture, coupled with the faint rays of the morning sun, made them look even more beautiful. He was wearing a white sweater while she was leaning against him. Both of their sides were enough to cause a scream. But it seemed as though they belonged only to each other. The next day. The sun was just right. Chin Mo's participation was still up in the air. The outcome wasn't something anyone could control. But Feng Yi still wanted to give it a try. No one knew he hadn't slept the entire night. Except for the shadow following behind him. If it had been any other time, Feng Yi might have noticed the shadow. But right now, all he could think of was how to tell the truth about Chin Mo to the committee and the fans who no longer believed in him. He wanted to tell them that even if he had lost his memory, his instincts were still there. He was an important pillar of support for the team. Hence, Feng Yi spent 3 hours to compile a detailed introduction. There wasn't any sensational content, just Chin Mo's statistics for the day. After he was done, he started contacting the media. There wasn't any time to rest. Until he drove to Little Spade's apartment to fetch Shui Yao Yao. That was when Fan Jia knew her chance had come. That's right, she had been keeping an eye on Feng Yi's movements since yesterday. She wanted to find out where he was. She had already analyzed it. The afternoon she had alighted, all the members of Supreme Alliance had left the club. But she didn't know where they had gone. The Asian Cup was around the corner. It wasn't possible for them to have fun at this time. Or to move out as a group. Unless they were meeting someone important. That could only be Chin Mo. It was a pity she had missed the first chance to follow him. Ever since she had missed the previous chance, she had been keeping an eye on Feng Yi. But this person was really too smart. He was so smart that she had almost been discovered twice. Fortunately, he had been extremely busy recently. Coupled with the things she had created, he wasn't as indestructible as before. She had followed him for so long and today, she had finally found a small loophole. She stood at the foot of the building, her lips curling upwards. She glanced at the rising elevator and memorized the number. Her eyes dimmed and she hid again. Regardless of what she wanted to do, she couldn't let anyone see her. At least, it wasn't suitable now. Fan Jia pressed down on the brim of her cap and smiled. She had finally found him and was about to snatch him back to her. She couldn't be like this. IGN, she should change out of her smelly clothes and put on some makeup since it was still early before nightfall. She had plenty of time. Deep down, Fan Jia didn't feel that there was anything wrong with ruining Chin Mo's competition. That kind of person should go and do bigger things. Whatever she did, it was because she liked him. He wouldn't blame her. But Fan Jia had never thought about it. How could she talk about liking someone after ruining their most important thing? Upstairs, Feng Yi saw the few people still rubbing their eyes. He smiled. Why are you all up so early? I just slept. With that, Rao Rong added, afraid that he would be burdened. We played until 4 a.m., the 2 people on the second floor probably can't be woken up. Lin Feng even kicked his pillow on the floor. Feng Yi glanced up at the clock. The results will be out in the afternoon. I'm going to fetch Yao Yao for an interview. Rao Rong opened his mouth, wanting to say something. In the end, he only smiled. Good luck. Feng Yi hooked his jacket with one hand. I will. Just from the fact that Feng Yi had specially come to fetch her. It was obvious how important this interview was. Everyone seemed to be aware of it. Supreme Alliance had really been pushed to the lowest point. There were voices of support and opposition online. But at this moment, the more support there was, the greater the chances of them winning. The committee would make a decision in the afternoon. Feng Yi used his many years of connections to exchange for a promise that he wouldn't use them to stir up trouble. He would only let them say what they wanted to say on the last day before the competition. It was too difficult. The longer they stayed in the industry, the more they understood what it meant. Today, Shui Yaoyao was different. She usually didn't wear makeup, and she even cut her hair, leaving it down to her shoulders. She was wearing the team uniform that Bojiu had given her the other day. On it, she had written the words, "Your Highness Jiu," and the bright support symbol. It was as if she wanted to tell everyone about it. Supreme Alliance hadn't fallen. Feng Yi paused slightly when he saw Shui Yaoyao. Then he reached out and caressed her head. Good girl. The clock pointed at 8 a.m. The well-mannered grandfather butler didn't ask them to stay for breakfast because he knew they had more important things to do. 9:30 a.m. The interview room of a certain platform was ready. After Shui Yaoyao sat down, the host said, "I saw your solo match, it was amazing." "Thank you." Shui Yaoyao knew the host would be polite. The interviewer smiled. "Can you tell us how you got to where you are now? Your growth has surprised many people. Firstly, it's because I like it, and secondly, it's because my teammates are here." Shui Yaoyao still couldn't let it go. "They helped me a lot." The interviewer changed the topic, landing on the most controversial topic of the day. Recently, Supreme Alliance has attracted a lot of attention online. But this time, it's different. The previous time, it was about your vice captain, Spade Z. This time, it's your captain, Qin Mo. Are you feeling complicated? Chapter 1332. The interview was broadcasted on the official website. It seemed to be responding. Forwarding, commenting, continuing to forward. From the internet to the real world. Everyone started to help Supreme Alliance with publicity. There were even some rich fans who spontaneously organized an entire fleet of cars, temporarily forming a colorful painting just for support. Many people were saying that the 2018 Asian Cup would be more popular than ever. Firstly, it was because the venue was chosen with great difficulty to be in China. Secondly, it was because of the influence Supreme Alliance had brought about. It was really extraordinary. At the scene, all the tickets related to Supreme Alliance were sold out. Many people had already arrived in Jiang City before the start of the competition. They didn't force others to like this team. But when the reporter held the microphone and asked them, "Why are you here so early? The temperature in Jiang City is very low, isn't it cold?" "It's cold, but it's worth it." A girl smiled and waved her ticket. "My boyfriend gave it to me, and we only got to know each other because of Supreme Alliance." The reporter was shocked. Because of Supreme Alliance. At that time, he always imitated Almighty Qin as an assassin and was jealous because I liked Big Spade. In the end, Big Spade and Almighty Qin got together and he told me, "Look, your Almighty is with my Almighty, let's be together too." The girl smiled. "I'm a pit when I play games. When I play as a long-range shooter, I can't hit the target accurately, I run slowly and I don't understand positioning, so I'm always killed. He would always rush out to avenge me after I die. Even though he isn't that good, do you understand the feeling? I always feel that someone who loves Supreme Alliance so much wouldn't have a bad heart and would always be more mature than others. When we are together, we don't speak much and feel like we are being taken care of." The last time I saw Little Spade wearing a sock puppet and saying that her boyfriend was jealous and that she had to coax him. At that time, I thought that he had always been the one coaxing me and I had never coaxed him. Now that we are about to graduate, I'm always worried if we can be together in the future. Unexpectedly, he proposed to me that day. He said that even Almighty Z has to coax her boyfriend, so how can he coax his girlfriend? It's not that we don't quarrel, but sometimes, when we quarrel, we look at those people and it reminds us of the sweet times. The reporter didn't expect to interview such a person. Afraid that it would be seen as a show, he didn't say much. Even though he knew that if this interview was broadcasted, the click rate wouldn't be too bad, to avoid suspicion, he still moved the microphone to the one below. Then, he froze. It was an auntie with a load on her shoulder. Her hair was a little white, and her back was slightly arched. She was dressed very cleanly, as if she had specially waited for this day. However, she still had to make a living, so she brought along the things she wanted to sell, a small amount of cigarettes and some bottled water. She held the ticket in one hand and asked the person beside her, "Is this Supreme Alliance's match ticket? Are we going to watch it here?" When the reporters saw this scene, they were shocked. After all, it was impossible for people of his age to watch esports competitions. Moreover, there was only an elderly auntie, which made her seem even more out of place. After the camera swept over, both the reporters and the cameraman felt that this was going to be a hot topic. They passed the microphone over. "Auntie, sorry to disturb you, but we are really curious. After all, apart from some young girls, there are also guys who like to play this game. There's only one person of your age here, so if it's convenient for you, can you tell us why you bought this final match ticket? Is it for the younger generation in your family?" Unexpectedly, the auntie hurriedly waved her hands. "No, I bought it for myself. After waiting for so long, I can finally support those children. I'm really happy." "You bought it for yourself? Then you..." With that, the reporter paused. "Do you know anyone in Supreme Alliance?" After all, the word children had been mentioned. The auntie seemed to be in a hurry since the camera had been pointing towards her. But then, she seemed to have recalled something and gradually stopped. "I don't know them, but they have helped me a lot. I am grateful to them for providing me with a lawyer when I seek redress for my daughter's grievances." With that, she paused. "Host, can I use your platform to say a few words to them?" The reporter's fingers paused. "Go ahead." But he wasn't sure if Supreme Alliance would see it. "I've watched your competition on the big screen. I'm old and don't understand competitions, but when I see you win, I feel especially happy. This is even better, Auntie has earned quite a bit of money from selling things, so I can go in and watch your competition." The reporter didn't know how to continue this sentence. Every single one of them seemed to be touched by their own words. He knew very well. Why were they standing here? Buying tickets with smiles on their faces. They wouldn't force you to like the team they supported. Instead, when you asked, they would speak with assurance or smile shyly. Regardless of the expression, they had never left this place. They seemed to be saying it with all their might. "You might think that we are just fireflies, but together, we are a torch. A torch that protects the team." "Are we still interviewing?" the cameraman asked. Originally, they wanted to catch some questions from the scene to create a topic of discussion. But it was obvious that this time, they were destined to return empty-handed. The reporter had played games before, but that was a long time ago. Back then, there wasn't even a Supreme Alliance. They didn't really like it, but the games that seemed to appear in their lives. King of Fighters, Super Mario, Dance Dance Group, Crossing the Line of Fire, Warcraft, Jade Dynasty, and now, Hero. These were all familiar names that seemed to remind them of that period of time, what they were like, what kind of friends they had by their side, and what they were closer than lovers. They would talk about everything, even going to the toilet together, having little secrets between girls. They would climb walls together, learn to smoke, and be worried that their parents would see them, turning on the electric fan and blowing continuously. In the end, if they didn't blow clean, they would fight, using the excuse that it was a battle between men. In reality, they hadn't even grown their hair back then. The reporter lowered his head, looking at the template that someone had given him. With a wave of his hand, the paper was torn to shreds. Of course we have to interview them, but we have to do it according to the actual situation. But above, I'll take responsibility. 2 words, end. Chapter 1333. Fan Jia tightened her grip when she saw the report. This was the first time she felt like she couldn't control the situation. She had assumed that even with Z around, she wouldn't be able to control the hearts of others. After all, she knew better than them how they thought. She hadn't expected someone to step forward. Fan Jia's eyes dimmed, but there was nothing she could do. She had wanted to approach them from the perspective of a fan and then poach them. Who would have thought that in the end, she would only be able to pry away a few scattered people? They weren't going to be of any use. After all, Feng Yi wasn't a pushover, he would definitely control the public relations. Fan Jia realized that her plan might fail and started to panic. At this moment, Bo Jiu made her move. When it was time to contact young Master Tang, she wouldn't hold back. Of course, she couldn't make such a call in front of others. She found an excuse to enter the washroom. After closing the door, the call went through. She didn't say anything unnecessary, just one sentence. Fan Jia is in Jiang City. She was last seen in the old alley of the Great Wall Street. There are many inns and internet cafes there, but similarly, there are many surveillance cameras. The person on the other end laughed. Are you only going to tell me Fan Jia's location? Aren't you going to tell me your location? Or rather, where are you hiding Qin Mo? It isn't difficult for us to find him since you have to participate in the competition. That's true. Why don't you let young Master Tang handle the matter and allow the Almighty to participate in the competition? You can capture him. What do you think? Bo Jiu arched a brow, her fingers tapping on the phone as though she was negotiating. Z, do you think I don't know what you are up to? Didn't you already know that we wouldn't capture him in public? That's why you brought him to Jiang City. It is indeed troublesome to capture Qin Mo since we have to think of an excuse. But no matter what, it won't be able to convince the masses. When young Master Tang said these words, he tugged on his tie. The latter part was what I said during the meeting. It's always difficult to persuade those people. Bo Jiu replied calmly, young Master Tang, you are being humble. This level of deception should be a piece of cake for you. The person on the other end of the line didn't reply. Instead, he changed his tone and said slowly, as long as you can ensure that Qin Mo doesn't do anything, we won't do anything. If he shows any signs, you have to be prepared. My boyfriend is busy dating me every day. He doesn't have time to do anything else. Bo Jiu replied casually, but she was well aware of the situation. If you guys can't catch him, I don't mind doing it myself. You want to commit a crime. Z, this is China, not the Fifth Avenue. Are you here to capture or kill? Focus on your competition. We'll take care of everything else. Being obedient isn't for your own good, it's for your family's good. You should understand what I'm saying. Of course, Bo Jiu understood. That was why she hadn't launched a large-scale attack to track Fan Jia down. During the probation period, whatever she did would be blamed on the Almighty, so she couldn't do it. If everything goes according to plan, we should be able to find him tonight. These were young Master Tang's last words. This person always did what he said. Since he said it was night, it wouldn't be past midnight. Bo Jiu relaxed. The moment she hung up, she received another call. It was Feng Yi. Bo Jiu pressed the answer button. A voice came from the other side. It seemed to be somewhere else, and the background noise was a little noisy. Tell those bastards not to worry. With just a few words, Bo Jiu smiled. The committee has agreed. Even though he was tired, he wanted to share his joy with someone. But the committee still needs to see how good he is. If he's still top-notch, the name list will remain the same. Bojo arched a brow. What do you think? It's too late for a match, isn't it? I sent the footage of your training yesterday to the committee. They're looking for someone to analyze it. Feng Yi paused. Let's wait a little longer, the results will be out soon. A chance is better than no chance at all. All right. Bojo's eyes lit up. Feng Yi was right, there was still a chance, at this moment. Within the committee, a person led the three almighties from Xiangnan into the room. The person at the front was Xiangnan's captain, Xiao Jing. Goddess Luo stood on the left while Zhao Sanpang stood on the right. Honestly, it was such a sensitive time for the committee to invite him. Zhao Sanpang was still a little apprehensive. The person sitting in the middle of the meeting smiled. Sit, don't stand. I called you here because we need you to complete a task with us. Task? Zhao Sanpang turned his head to look at his captain with a dumbfounded face. There wasn't a single ripple in his emotions. With such a comparison, he felt that he was making a fuss out of nothing. Zhao Sanpang told himself to calm down, otherwise, it would damage his divinity. But before he could adjust his sitting posture, a video appeared on the big screen. They had been hearing about the ID in the video frequently. After all, a certain someone was flaunting their love. It was infuriating. Qin Mo is currently using this account. As he spoke, his gaze landed on their faces. I believe all of you have heard about the exposure on the internet. It is undeniable that Qin Mo is an outstanding esports player, but now that he has lost his memory, we can't decide if he is still suitable for the Asian Cup. The video was taken from the internet and the data is reliable. Take a look and analyze it from a technical point of view. What do you think of Qin Mo's current standards? Zhao Sanpang glared. Why did Xiangnan have to do such a thankless job? Before he could speak, his wrist was pressed down. Beauty Luo smiled, gesturing for him to tilt his head. That was when Zhao Sanpang realized that his captain had started to observe the movements of the character in the video. The other members of the committee were watching as well. Since they were in this industry, they had a certain level of understanding. There were even retired players amongst them. But the ones who truly understood were Xiangnan. After all, they had been the national champions for 3 consecutive years. That wasn't all, they had even been the runner-up in the Asian Cup. It was more suitable for them to provide their opinions on technical aspects. The video wasn't short. It wasn't just one match but 3 consecutive matches. After it ended. Chapter 1334. I don't think Qin Mo is suitable for the Asian Cup. Forget about his amnesia, even with the injury on his hand, he is bound to make mistakes in the competition. There are too many unpredictable factors in the competition. With his amnesia, he isn't as good as he used to be. He won't be able to create any miracles. Even though it's a pity, I personally admire Qin Mo. But considering the big picture, I will vote against him, the person said resolutely. The people sitting next to him seemed to be discussing and considering his suggestion. At this moment, Xiao Jing spoke up, Member Li is right, Qin Mo isn't as good as he used to be, but his improvement is far greater than anyone else's. From knowing nothing about the game to a 1v1 duel, he only used 1 round. After that, he didn't lose any of the subsequent rounds. Furthermore, the heroes he controlled were different. At the start of every match, he seemed to be understanding his character's skills. After 3 minutes, he would be able to learn them and even kill with a backhand. In the middle lane, he played as a sorcerer. It seemed casual, but every move he made was predictive. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been caught by the assassin. If anyone were to pay attention to his statistics, they would know that even though his score isn't the highest, his participation rate is 100%. These matches might seem to be controlled by the assassin, but in reality, no matter which character he plays, he is the one leading the rhythm. Furthermore, he wins every match. This game might not be difficult for professional players, but not all professional players are able to win every match. This is because other than himself, the other 4 teammates aren't controllable. If he wants to win, he has to control these factors and control the rhythm. Not only does he have to understand the strengths and weaknesses of his teammates, he has to be able to guess the positions of his opponents. At the very least, he has to achieve these 2 points. I won't talk about positioning and maneuvering because there are people here who don't play games. I just want to ask, who can do it? His voice was calm. This caused the resolute man to hesitate. Xiao Jing glanced at him. In the game, no one is more talented than Qin Mo. Even after so many years, I don't want to admit it, but it is a fact. Besides, he might have forgotten some things, but his body still remembers them. There is one thing that I don't agree with committee member Li because he is my opponent. Objectively speaking, Xiangnan is stronger than Supreme Alliance, but these people will always shatter my understanding. Supreme Alliance is a team that can never be judged from a 1-minute perspective because they will grow stronger with their opponents, and that is even more true for their captain. Mr. Li said that he couldn't create any miracles, but I didn't think so. After all, many people thought that he couldn't stop me, Fat Tai, and Luo Luo all by himself. But in the end, he fought 1 against 3, and with a sliver of his health, he broke through the crystal and ignited the whole of China's esports. At that time, no one thought highly of him, just like now. Committee member Li didn't say anything else. He swallowed all the words he wanted to say and rubbed his forehead. He put down his pen and seemed to be thinking. The conference room was silent. Seeing the situation, the person in the middle scanned the room. Now, you should have your own thoughts. Let's vote. Raise your hand if you agree. Xiao Jing was the first to raise his hand. Fatty and the others naturally followed. As for the others, regardless of what Xiao Jing said, they felt that it was safer to be conservative. In their position, they didn't wish to be meritorious. If Qin Mo really participated and anything happened during the competition, they would have to bear the responsibility. On the other hand, if Qin Mo didn't participate, at least there wouldn't be any accidents. For the first time, Fatty found it hard to breathe when he saw this. He didn't understand the meaning of calling them over. Only the 3 of them raised their hands, the others didn't seem to have any intention of agreeing. Just when Xiao Jing was about to put down his raised hand and leave, a voice suddenly rang out. Committee member Li seemed to have made a decision as he raised his hand. The 2 people sitting on his left and right also moved in the next second. Fatty's eyes started to waver in surprise. I was there for the competition, Xiao Jing mentioned. Committee member Li smiled. At that time, everyone stood up and applauded, as though they were using up all their emotions. It would be a pity if a contestant like Qin Mo was stopped. Hearing this, Xiao Jing's eyes lit up and he only said 2 words, "Thank you." Just like that, the 3 votes became 6. Qin Mo was saved. When it was time to leave, someone called out to Xiao Jing. "Captain Xiao, you are so smart, why can't you understand today's meeting? Why are you still speaking up for Qin Mo? If you didn't say anything, someone would have suggested for you to join Supreme Alliance temporarily and return to another team after the Asian Cup. It isn't impossible since it is for the greater good." Committee member Zhang, you seem to have misunderstood. Xiao Jing's voice was emotionless. I'm just speaking from a technical standpoint. If Qin Mo is too weak, I would vote against him directly. Besides, the good and bad of every team depends on the team members' respect for their captain. For a team like Supreme Alliance, they wouldn't think that I can replace Qin Mo. Similarly, the people from Xiangnan wouldn't let me leave either. Considering the bigger picture, it's better to leave more choices to the participating members. If emotions are present, they might not be able to perform well in the Asian Cup. With that, Xiao Jing walked into the elevator with Fatty and Luo Luo. Left behind, committee member Zhang almost laughed out of anger. What was wrong with these lousy gamers? Did they think that just because esports was popular, they could be like other athletes? At the end of the day, they were just fooling around. Just because they had fans, they were so arrogant. Sooner or later, they would fall. His words weren't pleasant to the ears. His voice could be heard through the cracks of the elevator. Zhao Sanpang wanted to press the elevator button and rush out to reason with him. Xiao Jing reached out to stop him. Is there a need? Zhao Sanpang was infuriated. What nonsense is he saying? Didn't many people say that winning or losing isn't important? Since we are just playing a game, it doesn't matter if we lose. Xiao Jing glanced over. At this moment, we just have to win. He didn't need to say anything. As long as they won, they would be able to bring glory to the country. Only then would they be acknowledged by more people. Those people probably had the same thoughts. Xiao Jing's gaze landed on the white wall of Supreme Alliance's promotional video outside the elevator. He believed that one day, people would understand that they weren't just playing a lousy game. They were playing in a league and their event was called esports. Outside the building, Feng Yi was still waiting for news. His phone rang. He didn't pause for a moment. After receiving the news, he turned to call Bojo. His phone rang. He didn't pause for a moment. After receiving the news, he turned to call Bojo. His phone rang. He didn't pause for a moment. After receiving the news, he turned to call Bojo. But there was one thing, the person she wanted to inform wasn't in the computer room. The other members were all there. When Lin Feng heard the decision of the committee, he leaped up from his chair and gave her a bear hug. He asked excitedly, "Really? Little Spade, is what you said true? You can take a look at your phone, old Fox Feng has sent a message." As expected, there was a group message. Lin Feng was overjoyed. He was so happy. After he was done, he seemed to have thought of something, his back stiffening. He glanced towards Qin Mo's seat instinctively. When he realized there wasn't anyone there, he heaved a huge sigh of relief. Fortunately, his actions weren't seen by his captain. Everyone was happy but their expressions were different. Bojo found the most reliable Rao Rong and asked, "Where did Brother Mo go?" "He probably went to the washroom." Rao Rong wasn't sure. Washroom? There hadn't been anyone there when she had arrived. At this moment, Feng Shang spoke up, Captain seems to have gone out to buy candies." Buy candies? No one believed that such a thing could happen. How could their captain buy candies? Bojo's fingers paused slightly before she headed downstairs. But just 3 minutes ago, outside the apartment, at a 24-hour convenience store at the entrance of the estate. She hadn't expected to be so lucky. She had planned to make her move at night. However, she hadn't expected to see that unexpected person. Fan Jia's eyes widened. He had one hand in his pocket, the other on the shelf. He seemed to be choosing something. His face wasn't any different from how she remembered, but now, he looked like a devil who had been freed. From the curve of his lips, she could sense a different evil aura. Very quickly, Fan Jia realized that this was the best opportunity to make her move. Because there was no one else beside him except himself. Besides, standing in front of the same shelf in the convenience store wouldn't arouse any suspicion. After making up her mind, Fan Jia suppressed her emotions and strode over to the tall figure. She heard a faint sound. That guy probably likes to eat this brand. The man's finger landed on one of the candies. Fan Jia hadn't expected him to buy candies. With his words, she knew who he was referring to. Intense jealousy made Fan Jia clench her fists tightly, her fingertips digging into her palms. Just as she was about to speak, a loud sound rang out. Swoosh! A poker card flew straight towards her face. Fan Jia dodged immediately, watching as the card stabbed into the bread behind her like a knife. Her face paled and she trembled. Brother Mo, don't you recognize me? Brother Mo. When Qin Mo heard this word coming from someone else's mouth, he realized a problem. He didn't like it. Fan Jia had wanted to make use of his amnesia to get close to him, but the moment she said that, the man took a packet of candies and was about to pay the bill. He didn't even look at her. Fan Jia narrowed her eyes, blocking Qin Mo's path. Brother Mo, do you really think that person likes you? She just wants you to participate in the Asian Cup, that's why she listens to you. If you don't believe me, I have pictures here. She has a close relationship with Hoshino. It isn't as simple as mutual admiration, they have always been close friends. Back then, in order to clear Hoshino's name, she didn't hesitate to lie to you. Have you forgotten all that? Fan Jia narrowed her eyes, blocking his way. Brother Mo, do you really think that person likes you? That was what Fan Jia thought he would say. He would at least say a word to her. Unexpectedly, he only gave her one word, a chill in his laziness. Scram. Fan Jia froze on the spot. There wasn't a hint of warmth in his gaze, as though he would kill her if she said another word. It seemed like she shouldn't have used such a method. Since she couldn't have him, no one else could. Fan Jia's eyes dimmed. Qin Mo, stop lying to yourself. The most important person to you is dead. It's all because you didn't catch her. You must still remember that bottomless abyss. Qin Mo didn't intend to listen to her anymore. But those words seemed to seep into his brain through his eardrums. He understood the hint and wanted to avoid it. But when he heard that sentence, the most important person to you is dead. It's all because you didn't catch her. The intense pain made him press down on his head. She fell deeper and deeper. By the time you realized it, it was already too late. When she needed you, you were already saving someone else. Fan Jia continued, walking towards her step by step like a snake spitting out its tongue. She fell deeper and deeper. By the time you realized it, it was already too late. Pack! Something seemed to break in his brain. Qin Mo's gaze wasn't as sharp as before. Instead, the color gradually faded. He seemed to be looking at something, but at the same time, it seemed like he couldn't see anything. He stretched his hand out to grab something. But all he caught was air. Fan Jia intentionally dodged, looking at him from the side. She continued slowly, you know better than anyone else that you are the one at fault. If you had listened to her and ignored others, tossing aside your so-called responsibility, she wouldn't have died. Pitiful Z, not only was she not accepted by the world, she would also sink into the abyss forever. You saw how she struggled to get up. When she was young, you promised her that when you grew up, no matter what you did, she would be the first. You were the one who went back on your word, you caused her death. When Fan Jia said the last sentence, Qin Mo's eyes widened. Qin Mo's eyes were completely blank. He raised his hand again. This time, it was even more intense than before. It was so intense that even his knuckles turned white. It was fragile yet tough. Back then, it was this tenacity that caused her brother to fail time and time again. She clenched her fists. This time, she didn't avoid him. Instead, she reached out to hold his hand. Chapter 1335. The smile on Fan Jia's face froze. That was because she hadn't expected that he wouldn't grab her hand. Instead, he raised his hand and grabbed the red string around his neck. The red string was very thin. If one didn't look closely, they wouldn't be able to tell that there was an amulet tied to the other end. Fan Jia gritted her teeth when she saw this. She couldn't accept that at this stage, he was still thinking about Z, who should have died a long time ago. The hypnosis wouldn't fail. When he had been in the Golden Triangle, he had seen the video that they had purposely played for him. Moreover, the environment by the lake and his amnesia. All these signs showed that he had been affected. Otherwise, he wouldn't have lost his memory. Now that she was doing a deep hypnosis, it was impossible for him not to break down. Fan Jia looked at the pair of dazed eyes and lowered her voice. "Brother Mo, it's me." "You?" Qin Mo's eyes moved down slowly. Fan Jia seemed to have seen hope, her eyes lighting up. "That's right, it's me. Z, have you forgotten? You have been looking for me." "I haven't forgotten." Qin Mo released the amulet and smiled at Fan Jia. "I have been looking for you." Fan Jia knew she had succeeded. In his subconscious, he had treated her as Z. Back when she had approached him, she had wanted to use Z's identity because at that time, they had realized that Qin Mo's treatment of Z wasn't his usual style. But at that time, he had been too flawless. Even though they had obtained a lot of information, she had only appeared by his side for 3 days. She hadn't done anything and he had exposed her. He had even dug out information about the organization from her. Fan Jia hadn't forgotten about this. She had thought that the best chance to become his lover hadn't been fulfilled. This time, it was different. He had a weakness that could be overcome and it was a fatal one. Since he wasn't willing to admit that that person had left, she would replace that person. Fan Jia didn't care. Anyway, she had become the most important person in his heart. "Let's go, Brother Mo." Fan Jia smiled lightly. Qin Mo arched a brow. "Where?" "A place without anyone else." Fan Jia glanced to the side. "It's too noisy here." Qin Mo didn't object. He didn't know why, but there seemed to be a voice in his ears telling him that this person was very important. It wouldn't be wrong to listen to her. When he nodded, Funjia's smile deepened. She reached out to grab his wrist. But what she grasped was indeed a piece of air. Fan Jia frowned. Brother Mo, Qin Mo didn't know why he dodged. It seemed like a natural reaction. Fan Jia tried again. This time, she wanted to hold on to him. But the result was the same. Fan Jia inhaled deeply, looking extremely understanding. "It's fine, I know you aren't used to people approaching you, including me. Let's head back to our place first. We'll leave the country tomorrow or the day after." "All right." Qin Mo's agreement boosted her confidence. It seemed that it was only a matter of time. After a long time, he wouldn't reject her like he did now. Chapter 1336. MMH. Even though the answer was cold, Fan Jia could see her life-saving talisman. But in that word, Fan Jia could see her life-saving talisman. As long as he was around, the police wouldn't be able to find them. Fan Jia didn't dare to stay any longer and urged Qin Mo to leave. But Qin Mo was still standing there. Fan Jia followed his gaze. It was the box of sweets. Her eyes were filled with jealousy. "Brother Mo, if you don't leave with me, I'll be in danger. Do you want to see me die again?" Her words were like needles stabbing into Qin Mo's mind. He suddenly turned his head, following behind Fan Jia as they exited the convenience store. At this moment, Fan Jia only wanted to leave. She hurriedly hailed a cab by the roadside. After opening the door, she gave the driver an address and swiftly shut the windows, as though she didn't want Qin Mo to look outside. Right at this moment, Bojo walked towards the convenience store. She couldn't see the speeding cab across the street. Of course, the person in the cab wouldn't be able to see her from so far away. Bojo walked into the convenience store. She scanned her surroundings but didn't see the Almighty. He couldn't have gone back. If he did, she would definitely bump into him. But where did he go? Bojo frowned. She pondered for a moment before walking towards the employee. She reached out to hold the box, her lips lifting slightly. "Hello, I have a question." "Aw. Thank you, thank you." The employee blushed and thanked her. Then, she fell into a daze, wondering how lucky she was to meet so many hunks today. Bojo saw that the girl was in a daze and wanted to repeat her question. "I want to ask, did you see a tall guy wearing a black trench coat just now? He doesn't like to talk and is very handsome. He's here to buy sweets." Handsome. The employee didn't even have time to think before she blurted out, "I saw him. Just now, he was still standing there." Then, a mysterious girl came and said something to him. Then, he left with that person. Girl. Bojo paused. The Almighty couldn't possibly know any girls. She thought for a moment and asked again, "Are you sure this person is the same person as the one I described?" "Of course." The employee's eyes lit up. "That man is too handsome. It's hard to forget him. We were wondering if he was a celebrity." He was indeed the Almighty. But why would he leave with a girl? Suddenly, something seemed to have jumped in. Bojo's eyes widened, her fingers trembling. She reached out and grabbed the employee's shoulder. "You must have surveillance cameras here, right? Can I have a look at the surveillance footage?" The employee was in a difficult position. "You have to ask our store manager." Bojo panicked for the first time. "Where's your manager?" "I think he's in the shop next door." "How about this, I'll call him and ask." The shop assistant was still very enthusiastic. After all, this little handsome guy looked very anxious. He turned his head and was about to reach for his phone. But what she didn't expect was, the other party did not give her the time to do so. Just as she turned her head away, a voice suddenly rang out. Chapter 1337. "Mister, what are you doing? This is our cashier counter, you can't enter as you please." The cashier was clearly frightened. How could anyone other than the staff touch the computer in the convenience store? But the pressure on her shoulders was too strong, she couldn't break free. The handsome youngster just said, "Sorry." The other hand took over her mouse. She watched as the hand moved the mouse and placed it on the keyboard. Even though it was only one hand, it was faster than her two hands. The file on the screen was quickly opened. Before she could clearly see what the young man was doing, the computer program changed. The cashier tilted her head, signaling for the staff to call the police. She mouthed, "Call 110." The staff was obviously shocked, pressing the phone button, afraid that the youngster would do something drastic. She covered the phone and said, "Hello," right at this moment. The image on the computer screen popped up. Bojo calculated the time, pulling the video to 3 minutes ago. She saw the back view of the two people leaving. Then she continued to move forward. The camera couldn't capture the youngster's face, but there was a voice. Bojo could hear every single word she said clearly. "Fanjia." Bojo's fingers froze. When he heard that sentence, "You know better than anyone else that the person who made the biggest mistake in this matter was actually you. If you had listened to her, ignored everyone else, and cast aside your so-called responsibility, she wouldn't have died." Pitiful Z. Not only will she not be accepted by the world, she will also sink to the bottom of the ocean forever. You saw her struggling to get up. When she was young, you promised her that when she grew up, no matter what you did, you would put her first. You were the one who broke your promise first. You killed her. Bojo's fingertips turned cold. She should have thought of it. Why did he hate his past self so much? But she was still too stupid. She never knew that the knot in his heart had always been her. He felt sorry for her. That was why he became like this. He had thought of her, the little Bojo he knew when he was young. That was why he said those words to Director Huang. He wasn't looking for her because he wanted to capture her. He was simply looking for her. Bojo couldn't describe her feelings as she watched him leave with Fan Jia. There was a murderous look in her eyes. It was strong and undisguised. She didn't stay here for long. After getting the image he wanted, he held onto the table with one hand and flipped over. He unlocked his phone with the other. Give me an answer now, where exactly is Fan Jia? Young Master Tang heard the strangeness in her words. What's wrong? Fan Jia has the key to the hypnosis, the Almighty has left with her. Bojo's voice was clearly softer. Young Master Tang stilled, aware of the severity of the situation. He gave Bojo an address and turned to instruct his men. Send more plainclothes officers and use the police dogs. The operation is to be carried out 2 hours earlier. Yes. But even so, they weren't faster than her. On this day, almost everyone who lived in the North City district saw a black Lamborghini. It was just like a racing scene in a movie. It sped from the asphalt road into the long alley. The left wheel was pressed against the wall, the car slanted as though it was a black bolt of lightning. Bojo held onto the steering wheel with one hand while the other looked at the back of the car. With a turn of her tail, she shook off the police car that had been following her. The police car had been called by the supermarket staff. At first, they had assumed that she was here to rob them, but when they saw her car, they chased her for a whole street. When they questioned the convenience store staff, they found out that she had only taken a glance at the supermarket surveillance camera. In that instant, they didn't know if they should continue the chase. Actually, they didn't need to think about it. Because no one could catch up to Z. Especially the current Z. The bats whizzed past, bringing with them the wind. At this moment, the taxi had reached its destination. Fan Jia smiled sweetly at Qin Mo, you definitely won't like this place. I don't like it either, but I have no choice, I'm forced to stay here. But things will get better soon. Once we leave the country, no one will be able to control us and I will be able to move around freely. Qin Mo remained silent. It seemed as though he had been like this the entire time. He didn't even know if he heard what she was saying. Fan Jia clenched her fists, feeling extremely indignant. But at the same time, she knew that some things couldn't be rushed. The two of them continued walking, turning into a long alley and heading upstairs. Suddenly, they stopped in front of a door. Qin Mo stopped. Fan Jia turned. What's wrong? Could it be that he wasn't going to listen to her again? That was impossible. In his heart, she was the most important person. Even if it was his body and behavior, he couldn't accept it, but his hypnosis kept telling him this. That was indeed the case. Qin Mo seemed to be imprisoned. All he could think about was protecting this person. There's a problem around here. Fan Jia was right about one thing. With Qin Mo around, it would be difficult for the police to find them. Is this room yours? Qin Mo's voice was emotionless. MMH, Fan Jia replied. Brother Mo, isn't it shabby? Don't worry, the situation will change soon, Qin Mo didn't know why he felt disgusted when she called his name. It's not broken or not, the lock has been tampered with. Don't go in, there might be people inside. Continue walking forward and go down that way. Qin Mo nodded. Fan Jia broke out in cold sweat when she heard this. A cheap house like this wouldn't be visited by a thief. Under normal circumstances, staying in the room was one of the high-end methods of the police, waiting for the suspect to fall into the trap before taking action. Fortunately, this person had seen through it in advance. Fortunately, she had covered her face. Do you see the person smoking in front of the shop not far away? He should be a stalker. It's best if you don't act suspiciously. Qin Mo's voice was still emotionless. There was even a hint of disgust in his voice. Of course, Fan Jia could hear it. But so what? Wasn't he still trying to protect her with the words he said now? So this was what he had been relying on in the past. Childhood sweethearts who had grown up together. Even if she was a criminal, she could become the most unique one. Ha! From today onwards. Chapter 1338. Very quickly, Fan Jia realized things weren't as she had imagined. Qin Mo didn't have much feelings for her. Fan Jia wasn't willing to give up. She wanted to pretend to be afraid so that he would care about her. However, he spoke before she could. It'll be easier to be discovered if you walk around like this. Go to the noodle shop on the left. Qin Mo's tone was calm when he spoke. Fan Jia was still worried. Isn't that too obvious? It's too close to the street. The closer we are to the street, the better the view. Qin Mo didn't seem to like explaining. Regardless of what Fan Jia said, he didn't speak. He approached the noodle shop and asked for a seat by the window. The angle was ingenious. Because of the decorations on the table, people outside wouldn't be able to see what they looked like. However, the people inside could clearly see what was going on outside. Moreover, the shop was at a triangular corner. This meant that not only could they see the pedestrians in front, but they could also see the movements on the left and right. After Qin Mo sat down, he didn't order noodles. Instead, he ordered a cup of hot tea. Fan Jia watched the plainclothes officers walk past the window. That was when she understood why Qin Mo was sitting there. She was good at anti-detection. The ordinary police wouldn't be able to catch her. However, Fan Jia could sense the difference in the plainclothes officers this time. They had come so fiercely that she could only hide in such a poor place. There were no cameras here. It wouldn't be easy for them to find her. But if they really carried out a carpet search, it would be hard for her to escape. What scared Fan Jia the most was that they already knew which building she was staying in. Fortunately, she had made a move in advance and used the hypnosis key. As expected, as long as Qin Mo was around, everything would be done with half the effort. Fan Jia knew why her master had wanted him to become a member of the organization in the past. Because having Qin Mo was equivalent to having a divine weapon. Regardless of whether it was for protection or killing, he was the most valuable. Now, Fan Jia could clearly see his value. He could drink tea leisurely in front of the plainclothes officers without being discovered. He was a natural-born criminal. Fan Jia smiled. From now on, they would be in the same world. The plainclothes guards were still pacing back and forth outside. Something seemed to have happened as their footsteps became much more hurried. Something had indeed happened. It was the person hiding in the house who discovered the problem. Young Master Tang, the landlord, said that Fan Jia came back but she didn't enter the room. We didn't see her on the other floors, not even the first floor. What should we do? Get out of the room first. Retreat? Yes, there's no point in continuing to wait. If Fan Jia had been with Qin Mo, these tricks would have been nothing in front of him. Then, wait a minute, who are you and what are you doing here? Before the plainclothes man could finish his words, a slender figure suddenly appeared in front of the door. It was a young man around 18 years old. He had his head lowered and was looking at the door lock. His eyes were slightly narrowed, and no one knew what he was thinking. The plainclothes man was about to walk over and hold him down to interrogate him. Unexpectedly, the moment his hand touched the youngster's shoulder, the youngster pushed him back. Then he heard the youngster's cold voice. "They were here, you just didn't notice." "What?" The plainclothes man was stunned. Just as he was about to ask something, he heard a voice. Just as he was about to ask, the youngster released his hand and turned to walk in another direction. His gaze landed on the pile of rubbish that had been stepped on. "They went down from here, so half of your efforts were in vain." "Who exactly are you?" The plainclothes man couldn't help frowning. "Are you a student from around here?" "Kid, let me tell you, don't be like Detective Conan just because you watch too much anime. We still have to search for evidence, you." The plainclothes man hadn't expected that before he could finish his sentence, a voice interrupted him. He was interrupted by the voice on the other end of the phone. "How old is the person you're talking to?" 10, I think he's 18, the plainclothes man stuttered. He hadn't expected young Master Tang to ask such a question. The most surprising thing was that the question continued. "He's rather handsome with silver hair." "Yes." "Then it's her. I'll need at least 2 hours to get there. During these 2 hours, the entire team will listen to her commands." No matter how shocked they were, they would obey the orders given by their superiors. But no matter how much he thought about it, he couldn't figure out what kind of person could make young Master Tang so sure of their abilities. Moreover, the other party looked like a student no matter how he looked at him. Since they were so close, Bojo could hear their conversation. She watched the shocked expression on the plainclothes man's face but didn't say a word. She didn't want to lead the team either. She just wanted to find someone as soon as possible. However, this phone call was also beneficial. Firstly, no matter what she did in the vicinity, these plainclothes officers would not arrest her. Secondly, she had also obtained some information. She had been here but did not enter the building, which meant that the police's operation was successful at first, but someone had seen through them. Bojo didn't think Fan Jia would be the one to see through it. Only the Almighty would be able to observe something as detailed as the lock. Through the video in the supermarket, Bojo already knew the key to hypnosis. She knew that the Almighty had mistaken Fan Jia for her. She didn't know how effective hypnosis was. She only knew one thing. If the Almighty was really trying to avoid the police, he definitely wouldn't be like Fan Jia, who would hide in the shadows. He would be very calm, right in front of you, one step ahead of you, occupying the best spot without you noticing. Bojo closed her eyes, thinking about the few times they had crossed paths. At the same time, she recalled the times when she thought she had escaped safely, only to be caught by the Almighty. Suddenly, her eyes widened, bright as stars. Field of vision. Regardless of the situation, field of vision was the most important. Bojo swept the pile of rubbish downstairs. She leaped over with large strides, her eyes watching the people walking back and forth. The environment here wasn't good. The streets were dirty and messy, even the building was on the verge of being demolished. Just like that, it was in an alley. But even such a place had its own terrain. Bojo scanned the roads on her left, right, front, and back. Gradually, a map formed in her mind. This was the place to stay, this was the market, that was the convenience supermarket, and after another turn, there was a three-way junction, the noodle shop. Chapter 1339. The noodle shop was too small and inconspicuous. Honestly, if Bojo hadn't tried hard, she wouldn't have been able to remember it. But at the same time, she knew that such a place would be easily overlooked. It was too ordinary and normal. However, its geographical location and perspective were indeed excellent. It was just like how she liked to eat oden in the convenience store when she was in disguise, watching the police cars fly past her. Bojo glanced up abruptly. The tip of her tongue touched the roof of her mouth. This time, was she here to stop him? Bojo was smart. She didn't let the plainclothes guard follow her. She didn't even choose to enter from the left, right, and front. Instead, she walked to the back, removed her black trench coat and wrapped it around her hand. Then she pushed against the wall and walked into the kitchen. When the chef saw the sudden appearance of a person, his hand that was scooping up the noodles paused. What was going on? The most important thing was that the child took away the shredded meat noodles he had cooked. She had taken it away. Bojo had indeed taken a plate of noodles. That was because the Almighty hadn't eaten dinner in order to buy sweets for her. Of course, she was prepared for the fact that she would be facing two people later. Bojo dragged the plate with one hand and stuffed the other into her pocket. She walked towards the window. Fanjia's back was facing her, so she didn't see the person approaching them. But Chinemo was different. He seemed nonchalant, but in reality, he could sense the slightest movement. Moreover, the person who didn't seem like a waiter was walking towards them with a plate. Chinemo found that person familiar. But the reason he didn't shift his gaze wasn't because of the familiarity. It was because of the smile on her lips. It was interesting, as though she was saying, "Look, I knew you would be here." Chinemo arched a brow. Fanjia didn't know what he was looking at. By the time she turned around, her expression had completely changed. The venom in her eyes wasn't concealed at all. How did she find her way here? Fanjia bolted upright, picking up the knife hidden in her bag and pointing it at Bojo. She lowered her body slightly and placed the plate of shredded pork noodles in front of him, her voice carrying a hint of dissatisfaction. "Brother Imo, I really didn't expect you to be tricked away when you were buying sweets. Here, the noodles are freshly cooked, eat it while it's hot." I know, you don't remember me again. Actually, I feel that after I stop gaming, I can write a book called My Boyfriend Loses His Memory Every Once in a While. Chinemo didn't speak. He was observing the youngster. Fanjia watched from the side, the venom in her eyes growing thicker and thicker. In the end, she couldn't take it anymore. She lowered her head and smiled, her voice like a snake's. "Brother Imo, this is the person who has been trying to hurt me. Help me kill her." Bojo's fingers stilled. She knew very well what would happen if a hypnosis was turned on. She was still too impulsive and wanted to bring him back, so she walked in just like that. But she forgot about Fanjia's treachery. Fanjia seemed to be enjoying the feeling, her lips curling into an uncontrollable smile. Chapter 1340. Chinemo didn't move. Why wasn't he moving? Fanjia glanced towards him. He clutched onto the amulet again, his eyes emotionless, but that proved one thing. The hypnosis wasn't enough for him to kill Z. He could have done it when he was facing other people. Why wasn't it working against this person? Fanjia clenched her fists, her eyes filled with indignation. But very quickly, she realized something. Although it was impossible for him to kill that woman, if the other party hurt her, he would do it. That wasn't all, he was looking at her with a foreign gaze. Which meant that Z's arrogance would end here. "Brother Imo, she will take me away, she will definitely take me away. She's in cahoots with the people outside, please help me." Fanjia's eyes shifted. She sheathed her knife and leaned over helplessly. "Brother Imo, she will take me away, she will definitely take me away." As expected. Chinemo reached out and blocked Fanjia, his eyes dimmed. His voice didn't seem to be replying to Fan Jia. Instead, he seemed to be telling himself, I won't allow anyone to take you away. With that, Bojo paused, glancing up towards Fan Jia. Fan Jia revealed half of her face, her gaze sinister. She seemed to be saying, come over if you dare. Bojo narrowed her eyes. Indeed, she didn't like this scene, even though she was mentally prepared. Fan Jia was still acting pitiful, calling him Brother Mo, but in reality, she was trying to provoke Bojo. This way, if C were to take action against her, Qin Mo wouldn't disobey her commands like before. Whoever hurt her would die. That was the real hypnosis in his mind. The more Fan Jia thought about it, the brighter the smile on her face. She couldn't wait to see the arrogant C beaten down by Qin Mo. She couldn't wait to see how heartbroken she would be. Fan Jia took another step forward. Her motive was to make it easier for Bojo to touch her. Who would have thought that the man would laugh lightly, pull the wooden chair from the next table with one hand, and sit down with his long legs spread apart? He was extremely nonchalant. I'm not interested in a rat living in the gutter like you. Catching you is the police's job. If I really want to take someone away, I'll take my boyfriend. Also, Brother Mo, do you think you can call him that? Miss Fan, it's really funny. Do you spend your entire life trying to copy someone else, only to realize that a fake is a fake and will never be real? Fan Xian was speechless when she heard Fan Xian's words. The last sentence caused Fan Jia's expression to change completely. She had to use all her strength to suppress the urge to stab this person. She knew that she couldn't expose herself at such a time. Her eyes reddened. What do you mean by insulting me? It's fine if you want to kill me, but now, you are denying me. My relationship with Brother Mo isn't something you can break up with just a few words. If you want to arrest him, then arrest him. Don't try to sow discord here. Bojo didn't reply. Instead, she turned towards Qin Mo. Logically speaking, with his intelligence, he should have been able to tell the problem, even if he had lost his memory. Logically speaking, with his intelligence, there was no way he wouldn't be able to identify the problem, even if he lost his memory. Logically speaking, with his intelligence, he should have been able to tell the problem, even if he had lost his memory. But now, he had no intention of not protecting Fan Jia. It had to do with the key of the hypnosis. During the setup, you set the fingerprint as the owner and it would recognize this fingerprint. At that time, Fan Jia had been the only person in front of him. That was the function of the key. It would cause a person's tolerance to collapse completely and then lure out the hypnosis in the deepest part of his mind, completing the setup. Unless there was a breakthrough. But Bojo had no idea what was the breakthrough point in his heart. Originally, she had assumed that he would know the fake Fan Jia was the moment he saw her. But from the looks of it, it didn't matter anymore, it was the initial setup. She could only recover her memory. There was no other way. Or perhaps, she would watch him wherever he went. Bojo glanced up, noticing that he was looking at her, his gaze deep. Then he asked, "Are you always this dirty?" Bojo asked, "Dirty? There's something on your clothes. Didn't your family tell you that it's best not to climb over walls in places like the back kitchen?" Qin Mo's voice was neither warm nor cold, and there was even a hint of lecturing in it. Bojo pouted. "In the past, my boyfriend told me about it, but now that he has lost his memory, he doesn't even care about me anymore. I'm almost a child that no one wants." Qin Mo looked at the youngster in front of him, his fingers pausing. It had nothing to do with him. Qin Mo didn't know why, but when he heard that sentence, his heart skipped a beat. He wanted to reach out his hand and touch that messy head of black hair. This thought made his chest ache intensely, as if he had betrayed someone. Bojo sensed his odd behavior. Because it was too obvious, he held his chest with one hand, his brows furrowed, and even his lips were frighteningly pale. Just how painful was it for him to be like this? Bojio reached out to help him, but he took a step back, one hand extended, still protecting Fan Jia. I think I understand. What is your self-suggestion? Because you always feel that you didn't protect me well. That's why you ended up like this. Bojio inhaled deeply, glancing at the plainclothes officers who were about to enter. She immediately signaled them not to come over. She understood the Almighty too well. Perhaps, her approach was fine. But if it was the plainclothes officers, he would sense danger. Now, he would get rid of anything that was dangerous. Let them go. This was the first thing Bojio said after she came out. The plainclothes officers widened their eyes, one of them didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Do you know what you are talking about? If it hadn't been for young Master Tang's orders, he would have assumed that the youngster wasn't helping them but the criminal. Even though he was the one who had found the criminal, he couldn't be so reckless. Chapter 1341. The undercover officer wanted to speak. Bojio laughed lightly, interrupting him. If you don't trust my judgment, you can give young Master Tang a call now. The undercover officer panicked, replying with a stern expression, I have to consult my superior. Bojio gestured for him to make the call. The undercover officer immediately made the call, expecting young Master Tang to consider it seriously. Unexpectedly, the instructions he received were the same as before. Just listen to her arrangements, but there is something she is trying to trick you about. Regardless of whether you rush in or not, Qin Mo will still be holding hostages. Nothing will happen if you let him go, but if you don't, there will be two outcomes. Innocent people will be implicated and the city will be plunged into chaos. This time, you aren't facing an ordinary criminal. He can't even be considered a criminal because he hasn't committed any actual crimes. Just as you said, he hasn't started holding hostages. If it wasn't for the person next to you, you wouldn't have found him. He wouldn't have needed to take any hostages. You can ask the person next to you. If Qin Mo really took a hostage, what would she do? Bojio laughed. Did you purposely put me on speaker? It's just holding hostages. I'll be Brother Mo's hostage later. I can't possibly watch my boyfriend leave with another woman. I have a temper too. Your temper is to be a hostage. Young Master Tang chuckled. You are going through so much trouble to prevent Qin Mo from having any bad records. Let me guess what you are trying to imply. You didn't allow everyone to take action because Qin Mo would take action if anyone harmed Fan Jia. On the other hand, as long as Fan Jia is safe, he wouldn't take any lives. This situation isn't comfortable at all. There are many people who like you. I think Hoshino isn't bad. Why do you have to spend the rest of your life on a tree? You can make more choices and we can make a deal. Hand Qin Mo over to me and you won't interfere with him. The Tang sect will provide you with anything you want and I promise nothing will happen to him. How about that? Bojio tapped her fingers. It's a good deal, but young Master Tang, you seem to have misunderstood something. In this world, there is only one thing I want, Qin Mo, that's a pity. Young Master Tang didn't sound regretful. He didn't seem surprised that she would make such a decision. I didn't expect Z to like someone so much. Bojio paused, lowering her voice. Just now, when Fan Jia ordered him to kill me, his first reaction was to grab the amulet I gave him when he was young. You won't understand, actually he loves you more than you love him. Young Master Tang chuckled. Didn't I tell you that Qin Mo and I are people who would risk our lives once we fall in love? Bojio wasn't as upset as before. I have to say, your love story can be comforting at times. Even though you are still single and haven't gotten the person you want, it doesn't stop you from sharing your thoughts. Young Master Tang. Is this gratitude? Bojo didn't think there was anything wrong with her sharp tongue. Anyone who tried to persuade her to break up with her brother Mo deserved to be stung. Bojo turned and walked back to the noodle shop. Chin Mo saw the interaction between her and the plainclothes officer outside. However, what she said next made him look up. They won't make a move for now, but I'm guessing you won't be at ease. How about this, I'll be your hostage. With a hostage, even if they have a sniper, they won't open fire. This was the first time Chin Mo had met a hostage. His gaze swept past her face. Her skin was so fair that even the fine hair could be seen clearly. She was smiling, the tip of her nose stained with dust. There was a small tuft of hair that was as harmless as a kitten. But there was a natural sense of danger. Anyone smart wouldn't choose this person as a hostage, Bojo knew he was thinking. She stood there, allowing him to size her up. She even leaned forward and asked, "Do you find me especially beautiful? Tie me up so you can admire me." Chin Mo arched a brow. Firstly, it was because of the distance. Secondly, it was because she was indeed beautiful. Fan Jia watched from the side, her teeth clenched in pain. "We don't need a hostage." Then she walked out of the noodle shop. After she had taken 5 steps away, Chin Mo took a step forward. Bojo watched without a change in expression. This seemed to be the first time she saw his back view. She thought about it carefully. Because every time, he would be the first to watch her leave. In the past, she had always assumed that her departure would be the most painful. But now, she suddenly understood something. Back then, he was the one who had waited at the same spot the most painful. For some reason, Bojo was reminded of the interview. Someone had asked him why he wanted to play in the professional league. He had replied, "Because the person I'm looking for likes to play." It wasn't just when they were young. Even after they had grown up, he had always been waiting for her. Bojo's gaze followed the slender figure to the next spot. 5 steps. Did the hypnosis include staying a few meters away from Fan Jia? Bojo followed him. If he didn't want a hostage, she would be his neighbor. Fan Jia was certain that they wouldn't make a move. From the looks of the person just now, he seemed to have guessed something. She had wanted to use this chance to get Chin Mo to kill 1 or 2 people. That was the only way she would be able to relax. After being stained with innocent blood, he would never be the Chin Mo of the past. That was the final form of his personality. Yet, Z kept ruining her plans time and time again. Fan Jia hated him to the core. But she knew that she couldn't do anything to him. But so what? She was the one who wanted him to follow her closely, not her. If she wanted to follow him, she could do as she pleased. At the same time, she could witness how Chin Mo treated her with her own eyes. If she couldn't see it, she would tell her. Fang Jia's eyes lit up. When she turned, she suddenly paused and said to Chin Mo, "Brother Mo, stay here. I'll go and have a chat with that person. Don't worry, I won't be more than 5 steps away from you." Chin Mo remained silent. But Fan Jia knew that from a certain perspective, her words were a hint to him. She smiled and walked towards her. Chapter 1342. Bojo arched a brow but didn't retreat. She stuffed a hand into her pocket and watched Fan Jia. "It's the Asian Cup tomorrow and it's already evening. When we enter the room at night, you won't be able to do anything. I know you really want to bring him to the competition, but it's such a pity. He won't leave me now. No matter who comes, the result will be the same." Fan Jia chuckled and lowered her voice. "Don't waste your energy. Don't you know that the Asian Cup is tomorrow?" Bojo watched her, asking slowly, "Your plan worked?" You disguised yourself as me and completed the setup. Logically speaking, he should be close to you, but he didn't allow you to touch him. Why do you think that is? Fan Jia's eyes dimmed. Z, you really don't know when to give up. I've always been like this. Bojiu leaned forward, smiling brightly. You should be thankful that he is by your side now. Otherwise, I'm not sure which sea I would throw you into. Fan Jia clenched her fists. You don't have to be so arrogant. He didn't listen to my orders to kill you today, but that doesn't mean he won't do it tomorrow. You are smart, you should know that the hypnosis will get stronger over time. Do I need to remind you? Sooner or later, he'll realize that I'm the one he should have chosen the most. I've done so much for him, and you'll be nothing. You can stop talking about how you have to like me just because I like you. If destroying something he cares about is considered liking someone, no one in the world would want that kind of liking. Bojiu's gaze was cold, without a hint of warmth. Fan Jia didn't get the upper hand. Hence, she clenched her fists tighter. So what? I'm the one by his side in the end. As for you, you won't be able to bring him back for the Asian Cup and you won't be able to compete either. Hee, you have to suffer. Z, no one who goes against me has a good ending. You're too naive. That's why you gave us the chance to attack him. You think you're the savior and want to save everyone. You're so arrogant, but you're just an ordinary person who can't even deal with a little girl. People like you don't deserve to stay by his side. With that, she turned back to Qin Mo and smiled. Brother Mo, let's head up. Bojiu didn't reply. She stuffed a hand into her pocket and followed behind. Actually, she didn't like this feeling at all. But she disliked not seeing him even more. Gradually, the sky darkened. The last ray of sunset also lost its color as night fell. Bojiu's phone kept ringing, but she had no intention of picking it up. After receiving it, he didn't know how to tell Lin Feng and the others. She lost the Almighty again. Fan Jia was right about one thing. She was too pretentious and always failed to grasp what she should grasp. He knew that Fan Jia's target in Jiang City was him. She should have followed him 24/7 back then. But she had been distracted because she wanted to catch Fan Jia. There was a huge commotion online. In order to vent her anger, she had lost him again. With this thought, Bojiu moved her fingers and glanced up. She walked towards the Lamborghini parked in the long alley. She stepped on the accelerator and drove little Blackie downstairs. Qin Mo stood upstairs. He didn't need to look down to see what was going on downstairs. Even though the building was old, it had a good view. Standing in front of the window, he could see everything that was happening outside. At the start, he saw the youngster's drooping ears. He couldn't tell what she was thinking about. She didn't look as handsome as when she had served him noodles at the noodle shop. Instead, she looked pitiful. Qin Mo moved instinctively. He didn't want to continue watching. He didn't know why, but whenever he saw that person, he would feel a sharp pain in his chest. That kind of pain was unbearable several times. But the moment he left, he couldn't help but look again. When he stood by the window again, he realized that there was no one outside. Qin Mo couldn't describe the feeling. His chest finally stopped hurting, but the emptiness made him feel even worse. It was as though something had been dug out. There was even a very, very small voice that was saying something. Look, she finally couldn't wait any longer and left. Qin Mo reached out to grab the amulet around his neck. It was the only way he could get rid of the voice. Fan Jia stood at the side, watching the entire scene. Her eyes were filled with indignation. They were already in the same room, but his gaze never lingered on her. Brother Mo, Fan Jia said, her voice sounding like she was about to cry. I'm afraid that you will abandon me again. Qin Mo's gaze wavered. He tightened his grip. Fan Jia knew her voice worked. She walked over, wanting to take the chance to hug his waist from behind. However, he raised his eyes and walked to the window again, leaving only air behind. Fan Jia was infuriated. She followed his gaze and saw the culprit who had ruined her plan once again. What she couldn't stand the most was his gaze. Why did his gaze only land on that person? Qin Mo was indeed looking at her. It wasn't intentional, but the person standing at the bottom of the building was too dazzling. He didn't know where she had gotten a bunch of balloons from. They were huge and there were lights inside, colorful and beautiful. She seemed to know he was looking at her. She placed one hand into her pocket and smiled. Then she released her hand. The balloons floated up. At this moment, Qin Mo saw the words clearly. My boyfriend, are you hungry? There were 9 balloons, each with a word written on it. After seeing it, Qin Mo arched a brow. Even he didn't realize that the corners of his lips curved up slightly. But when Fan Jia saw the smile, her eyes were filled with jealousy. Bo Jiu didn't care what Fan Jia thought. After knowing that Qin Mo had received her message, she called the delivery boy over. She bit on her pen and wrote a line of words on the delivery order. She smiled lightly. The food is for the customer in the building above. Please pass this paper to the handsome guy standing by the window. It was the first time the delivery boy had encountered such a situation. He glanced up at the balloons floating in the sky. Is that really your boyfriend? Bo Jiu replied, adding another line on the list. The delivery boy was puzzled. Why is he with another girl? Because he lost his memory. Bo Jiu paused. Then she laughed. My boyfriend is good at everything, but he always uses his memory loss to spite me. He isn't like that when he is normal. Any girl that tries to get close to him will be treated like a germ. The delivery man was confused. He looked like he didn't understand what she was saying. But nowadays, all sorts of weird things happened. Not to mention adding words on the delivery list. Some people who ordered takeout would even add on the condition, please send a handsome man to deliver it to me. The delivery boy went upstairs out of habit. Before he went upstairs, he took another look at the balloons. The next time his girlfriend was unhappy, he would do the same. It was rather romantic. Qin Mo stood upstairs, watching as Bo Jiu disappeared again. He didn't know about the conversation between her and the delivery boy. Similarly, Fan Jia didn't know either. Hence, when someone knocked on the door, Fan Jia asked, "Who is it?" Fan Jia asked, "Who is it?" She heard the reply. A delivery boy. She took a moment before opening the door. She knew that Z was the one who had arranged for the delivery. Since it was here, she would accept it. Not only would she accept it, but she would also eat with Qin Mo. It was time for Z to experience what it felt like to watch the two of them eat. Unexpectedly, after she opened the door, the delivery boy greeted her. Hello. Then he added, "Handsome, there's a note for you." But Fan Jia couldn't stop him in time. Qin Mo walked over and took the note. There was a line on it. Do you like the balloons I gave you? Boyfriend. Fan Jia was infuriated. She hadn't expected that her actions would inadvertently allow Z to spread the news. But that wasn't the end. I ordered 2 sets of rice, one for myself and one for the delivery boy. I heard it's for couples. Even though it's a distance away, brother Mo, you can see me eating when you lower your head. Qin Mo wasn't interested in how others ate. He was just curious about what the youngster was doing. He walked towards the window. Fan Jia's wish had failed. She lost all her patience. She didn't want Z to see anything else. Brother Mo, it's getting late. Let's sleep. She naturally switched off the lights in the living room and strolled towards the bedroom. She knew that even if Chin Mo wasn't intimate with her, he had to maintain a distance that could protect her. Fan Jia smiled faintly as Chin Mo walked towards her. He didn't go to the living room window. Her lips curved upwards. She had said it before, it was useless. This person belonged to her. The hypnosis would be activated for more than 24 hours tomorrow afternoon. Once the 24 hours were up, she would be able to order him to kill. By then, his hands would be stained with blood. Fan Jia was patient. She didn't mind waiting a little longer. However, she also noticed something. That amulet was an eyesore. Every time it interfered with her words. She had to wait a little longer. After a night, she would be able to get rid of this thing. The smile on Fan Jia's face deepened at the thought. She had thought that Chin Mo would enter the bedroom with her. Unexpectedly, he stopped outside the bedroom, a full 5 steps away. He didn't seem to have any intention of entering. Fan Jia panicked. Brother Mo, aren't you going to sleep? Are you going to stand here for the whole night? In response, he leaned against the wall, stood slanted, hands in his pockets, and slowly closed his eyes. His meaning was very obvious. Fan Jia wanted to eat with him. Who would have thought that he wouldn't even speak, let alone talk about eating or not eating? Without standing by the window, he was like a devil who had lost interest in his surroundings. He was covered in darkness. Fan Jia tried to order him, but she was worried that it would backfire. It didn't matter if she waited another night. Anyway, they were sharing the same room. As for Z, she was afraid that she would think of many things. She didn't believe that Z could be that calm. Bojo wasn't that calm. Especially when she saw the light go off, the smile on her face disappeared. She threw the set meal into the bin. She told herself not to think too much. But she couldn't control herself and lit a cigarette for herself. The temperature outside was very low. She didn't know what the temperature in the room was like. She just felt cold all over. Fortunately, there was a heater in the car. But she didn't want to stay in the car. She wanted him to see her. She stood downstairs and smoked 7 or 8 cigarettes. When she couldn't take it anymore, she opened the car door. Bojo knew that Fan Jia wasn't going to give them any chance to interact. But she didn't know if he was moved by what she had shown him. This was the first time Bojo felt that time was passing so slowly. The night was hard to bear. But if they really took action to capture Fan Jia, she would fall into the opponent's trap. Bojo lifted her lids and glanced at the watch on her wrist. It was already 11 a.m. There were less than 12 hours until the competition started. 12 hours. How was she going to recover her memory? Bojo thought of many plans, but none of them were practical. When it was 2 a.m., she forced herself to rest. Because Fan Jia would definitely have something up her sleeve. Moreover, the longer the hypnosis, the harder it would be to break. She knew that Fan Jia was just wasting time by dragging it out. But even so, Bojo didn't know how to overcome it. She reached out and rubbed her temples. She looked at the cigarette butts on the floor. When she glanced at her watch again, another hour had passed. The comments online were still there. It was probably because there were less than 10 hours left. The official website started to count down. Even until now, there were still people who objected that Chin Mo and Spadesy shouldn't participate. Bojo's fingers slid. It was too cold. It was indeed cold. But she couldn't let go. Her fingers slid a few times. In the end, she tapped on a phone number. He Honghua. When He Honghua received the call, she woke up instantly. Joe, is that Joe? It's me. Bojo chuckled. She glanced up at the darkened windows. It was 6 in the morning, less than 4 hours before the start of the Asian Cup. 4 hours, she could almost predict all the results. She couldn't drag it any longer. No matter what, she had to keep the most important thing to him. Bojo took a step back. She buttoned the hood of her jacket, her figure tall and slender. When she spoke again, her voice was foggy. I'm afraid I have to break my promise. Chapter 1343. He Honghua supported her head with her fingers. Joe, why do you have to do this? You're just wasting your energy and the comments online won't stop. Bojo glanced up, her gaze landing on a spot. She laughed lightly. I don't care. He Honghua stilled. The phone hung up. She knew she had made up her mind. In reality, He Honghua didn't know that Bojo wasn't lying. She wasn't the same as the other members of Supreme Alliance. It wasn't just esports, it was just him. She stopped because she wanted his victory to be even more pure. No one could predict the irresponsible remarks of some people. In order to avoid trouble and to ease He Honghua's worry, it wasn't a big deal for her to give up. But if he regained his memory one day, would he feel regretful? There was also Yao Yao, Lin Feng, Uncle and the others. Their hard work. That was the reason for her decision. Bojo stuffed her phone into her pocket. In less than half an hour, the sky would be completely bright. She leaned over to retrieve a pair of black leather gloves and a baseball bat. She held it in one hand and walked up the stairs. She used the bat to knock on the small window of the old-fashioned door. Whoosh! The floor was filled with glass shards. Bojo wasn't afraid since she wore the gloves. She pressed down with both hands, arched her body and entered. She landed quickly. Qin Mo was leaning against the wall. When he heard the noise, he opened his eyes and looked at the youngster. Fan Jia ran out of the bedroom, her eyes widening at the sight. She hadn't expected him to use such a method to get in. Bojo didn't seem to see her, her gaze landing on Qin Mo. She smiled lightly. I have something to attend to and will be away for half a day. Before I leave, I want to tell you something. The most important person to you will always be around. What she is most upset about is that when you were looking for her, she didn't even realize it, giving someone a chance to take advantage of you, allowing them to grab hold of your weakness. You said that you want to stand in the most dazzling place and wait for her to notice you. You joined the professional league because she likes to play games. Now, it's her turn to wait for you. It doesn't matter how long it takes. Brother Mo, that's the competition you want to participate in the most. You should come. Qin Mo's fingers moved. His chest felt like it was being pressed by a huge rock, especially when he saw the youngster turn and leave after saying that. That suffocating feeling became extremely clear. Xinghua was worried that something would happen, so he asked, Brother Mo, are you going to leave me behind again to do something else? This sentence was like a code that pierced through a certain part of Qin Mo's expression. I won't. That's right. Never again. He never wanted to leave that man behind and do something else. Knowing that she could sway him by saying that, Fan Jia smiled faintly. She knew what Z was going to do. He was still harboring illusions. No one in this world could break the hypnosis, and Qin Mo couldn't recover his memory unless he could turn back time. Fan Jia glanced at the time on the clock, the smile in her eyes deepening. She still had to thank some people, the illegitimate fans who intentionally went against the officials. If it wasn't for them expressing their love, they would have stirred up negative discussions and caused Supreme Alliance trouble. Otherwise, she wouldn't have gotten what she wanted. These were the people that Feng Yi couldn't deal with. If he didn't deal with it, the rumors would spread even faster. If he didn't deal with it, there would be more rumors like Supreme Alliance didn't cherish their fans. Under such circumstances, Feng Yi would only run in two directions, which would cause him to be exhausted. That was what she had grasped at that time. Now, Supreme Alliance wouldn't be able to escape from the abyss of suffering. She didn't need to do anything else. With those illegitimate fans around, the team would only get worse. As for Z, she would suffer the same fate. With that in mind, Fan Jia glanced over, catching sight of Qin Mo's hand pressing on his heart. She had never seen him in such a state. She wanted to reach out to help him. But he clutched onto the amulet again. Again and again. She couldn't even compare to a lousy amulet. Outside the building, Bo Jiao turned on the taillights of the Lamborghini. Bo Jiao switched on the taillights of the Lamborghini. She didn't drive little Blackie away. Instead, she said, "If Brother Mo disappears like you did in the military, I'll dismantle you and turn you into a cleaning robot." This was the most shameless threat little Blackie had ever heard. "Master, how can you bear to do this to your beloved car? A car can't take care of a person." Bo Jiao patted its headlights. "Didn't you always complain about your monotonous life as a car? You can cultivate the joy of cleaning." As a smart car, little Blackie had its own optical drive analysis. As an outsider, how could it allow itself to be reduced to a broom? Even if it was an electronic one. "The previous time was an accident, I fell asleep. What can I do? Besides, who knew that the devil would take action at night?" Bo Jiao chuckled, replying leisurely, "That's why I washed your car gently, I didn't dismantle you." Little Blackie felt that Master was in danger today. He was afraid that he would lose his life. Hence, he adjusted the channel, using his most magnetic and serious voice. "Master, don't worry, I won't let anyone touch your little vixen. Wherever he is, I will be there, I won't lose him." Bo Jiao didn't say anything else, she patted it again. Little Blackie shivered, turning the headlights up a notch. When the plainclothes officers saw this scene, they only felt that they had encountered some kind of supernatural incident. They all looked at each other. They were all standing here, and the young man was really interesting. He didn't ask them for help, but actually asked for a car. The sky in the east started to brighten. It was impossible for General Qin not to receive Qin Mo's news. While Deputy Zhang was reporting, Movie Queen had already woken up. She had wanted to hear something. It was impossible for someone like General Qin to not notice the presence of another person. After Deputy Zhang left, General Qin walked to the corner. He walked to the corner and looked at the pajamas on the ground. Then, he squatted down, reached out a hand, and pulled his wife into his arms. He was wearing a military uniform. "Even if you don't believe me, you have to believe in our son. He will be fine. I should have realized it a long time ago. We were too selfish back then. When we were busy, we sent him overseas. When we weren't busy, we wanted to bring him back. We didn't even ask him if he was willing." Movie Queen was no different from a child in General Qin's embrace. Tears welled up in her eyes. "He has treasured that amulet since he was young. I don't know what he placed in it. When I asked Dad, he said that it was a memory he didn't want to forget. All these years, we thought it was best for him not to remember it. After all, that way, he could live a normal life in Jiang City. But who knew what he was thinking?" General Qin hugged her tighter. "It's all my fault, I'm to blame. I should blame you. Let me tell you, if our son doesn't come back, we will divorce." Movie Queen didn't let go of him. "Do you think that amulet will protect our son?" General Qin, who never believed in such things, lowered his voice. "It definitely will. If that little girl was still around, she would definitely protect him. After all, the two of them had been so close in the past. After all, in order to clear Z's name, he had done so much. No one knew about it. Perhaps, he didn't care about it. When he was young, his son had told him not to catch anyone who knew how to use a computer. At that time, he had treated it as a child's words. Now that he thought about it, it was probably because he liked it too much. Hence, he had thought about it in the future. Yes, because he liked it too much. The first reaction of liking was to protect it. Chin Mo wasn't the only one who thought about it. Bo Jiu too. She had never been so clear about it before. What did she want? It wasn't just to protect that person. It was to protect that person's dream. Since it was a dream, she had to stand in a corner and be clean. Ding, that was the sound of the mall's door being pushed open. At 8:00, some places weren't open yet. Of course, there were still people working. At 8:30, the crowd started to surge. Bo Jiu walked in. The sales lady smiled. Hello, do you need me to make an introduction? The men's clothing isn't on this floor. I know. Bo Jiu stuffed her hands into her pockets and removed her mask. She smiled. But, I didn't go the wrong way. When she saw that face, the sales lady's heart skipped a beat. It was really, 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 really handsome. Right at this moment. Jiang City, Bird's Nest. The transparent building was 258,000 square meters. There were fans queuing up to check their tickets and enter. There were balloons flying into the sky and three-dimensional cosplayers. Under the camera, it was a cool and spectacular sight. As time passed by, all the units were ready. The director in charge of the live stream directed the floor staff. For the third time, they tested the volume and network. Everything was in place. At 9:00, all the competing teams started to enter. There were 4 teams in this competition. It was like a 2-on-1 battle. The 2 teams that won would enter the finals. They had already drawn lots the last time. Many people were saying that it was fortunate that Supreme Alliance wasn't up against the Japanese. Otherwise, they would have been finished before the competition had even started. That wasn't wrong. However, the Japanese weren't the only strong team in the Asian Cup. Every team that could participate in the competition was at the international level. Many experienced esports fans felt that Supreme Alliance wouldn't be able to go up against them. 9:15 p.m. Supreme Alliance's lounge. Lin Feng glanced up. Still no news. Yun, who was the one who replied. It had never been so gloomy. But some of the fans felt as though they had helped their idols, getting rid of all the people who didn't treat their team well. Shui Yao Yao and Coco looked at a corner, in a daze. It seemed as though they had lost all their fighting spirit. At this moment, the door opened. It was Feng Yi. He didn't look any different from before, his suit still neat. He glanced around the lounge and smiled. Do you guys want to lose before the battle starts? Do you guys not even have a chance to let Little Spade and young Master Qin come back? Of course not. Feng Shang bolted up, his face flushed. Feng Yi glanced at his brother, raising his hand in a gesture that Qin Mo used to do backstage. Since that isn't the case, play well. Don't tell me you can't do it. Who said we can't? Swoosh. Everyone put their hands on it. Feng Yi chuckled. Do you know, once you compete, the people here will be able to see you again. Be it young Master Qin or Little Spade, there will be gifts for you during the official introduction. Take a good look when you enter. Come on, Supreme Alliance, victory. They shouted with tears in their eyes. No one seemed to be able to hear them. This was because they were always like this. When they entered the battlefield, they would always wipe away their tears first. 9:30. Numerous staff members wore their walkie-talkies and work cards. The Western Europe and China national flags rose slowly. The director raised his hand, signaling to the MC. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. The drumbeat grew louder. 3, 2, 1. Swoosh. The lights lit up. The screen lit up. There was a paragraph of introduction in the middle. They had once fallen into the endless darkness. Today, they came out, vowing to become kings. Their name was Supreme Alliance. Before the crowd could cheer, the image changed, showing the faces of the people in their uniforms. Their voices rang out one after another. Hello everyone, I'm Supreme Alliance's top laner, Yin Wuyao. Hello everyone, I'm Supreme Alliance's middle laner, Rao Rong. Hello everyone, I'm Supreme Alliance's support, Lin Feng. Hello everyone, I'm Supreme Alliance's ADC, Yun Hu. Hello everyone. When this self-introduction came out, the whole place was silent. So many people were looking up at the big screen, listening to the voices of the people they liked the most. Until the final landing point rang out, as though it could ignite their blood. Hello everyone, I'm Supreme Alliance's captain, Qin Mo Whoosh. Almost everyone stood up, cheering uncontrollably. At this moment, the video seemed to shatter, merging back together. In the end, stars flashed. It was a scene from the provincial finals. An assassin in black had killed his way into the opponent's blood pool without any support. Double kill. Triple kill. Quadrikill. Pentakill. 5 consecutive kills, Spade Z. The shoutcaster screamed at the top of his lungs, but no one could hear his voice. When they saw the ID, some of the female fans reached out to cover their mouths. They were touched. Touched that many haters didn't understand. Regardless of what you said in the past. Would you be moved for a moment? That youngster stood in front of the screen, her head lowered. Every time she turned the tide, she would land a critical hit. Would the handsomeness of her fingers moving the mouse be denied just because she was a girl? No, it wasn't. The youngster who walked out from the darkness with a lollipop in her mouth, the one who could kill with her headphones. Chapter 1344. Right at this moment, as though to coincide with the scene, the host in a suit picked up the microphone and announced, "The Hero Asia Finals officially begins." Paw! The light beam shot down. All sounds and images froze. The focus was on the left and right sides. Supreme Alliance was on the left and Theo on the right. Everyone was cheering for the team they supported. A gust of wind blew, causing his black and red uniform to flutter. Another person wearing the same combat uniform walked out from inside. Their eyes were deep, as though they were burning with fire. Some people said that they had all the meaning of youth in them. You and your dorm mates would fight in front of the computer just to watch a match. The youngster you loved hugged you and said, "Look, this is the team I like." You and your bestie can talk about them until the wee hours of the morning under the same quilt. Just when you thought that was the end of life, you would lift your head and see that there was a team that had never aged. Regardless of how many years passed, they would never forget. But now, they were missing 2 members. The 2 that were supposed to be at the front didn't appear. Even though some of them were mentally prepared. But when he saw this lineup, his face went blank for a moment. Some of the audience members who had stood up returned to their seats with disappointment written all over their faces. Some of them had even begun to whisper to each other. "Why isn't Almighty Qin here? I thought Big Spade and Almighty Qin would appear." Even though there have always been discussions online, they shouldn't be unable to withstand this pressure. Seriously, the tickets were wasted. Sometimes, esports players faced such situations. They were the ones who said that Chen Mo had lost his ability. Now that he wasn't coming, they said that he couldn't withstand the pressure. It wasn't as if the Supreme Alliance couldn't hear it. Even Theo heard them. He didn't understand, but when he saw the commotion, he glanced over and asked the interpreter beside him. There was a slight change in the atmosphere. But regardless of the atmosphere, it was brought back by the host. Everyone must be looking forward to seeing how exciting the two teams will be. Let's cut to the chase and take a look at the order of the first two matches. They were both international teams. Of course, he would not come to the competition with an attitude of underestimating his opponent. But the news of Chen Mo's absence was a pleasant surprise for Theo. In fact, when they had alighted from the plane yesterday, they had received news that Chen Mo had lost his memory and might not be able to participate in the competition. But they always thought that it was just fake news sent out to confuse them. Now, it seemed that it was true. They didn't have to worry too much. After all, in this kind of internationally sports competition, the Chinese teams were always at the bottom. They were also fearful of Chen Mo, who had once given them a hard time. They had even specially trained him for a month. Now, Theo had a secret weapon. It was obvious that Supreme Alliance wasn't their match. Supreme Alliance's lineup is out. Rao Rong, 1-on-1. It was Yin Wuyao and Lin Feng. If it were me, I would also choose the same order of appearance, the commentator said. Another commentator said, oh. Why? Theo's team doesn't just have strong teamwork, they are also one of the best in individual combat. Supreme Alliance will have to grit their teeth and win one of the two matches. That way, they will have a chance to enter the team battle. If they don't win this match, it will mean that Supreme Alliance has lost. Which means you think Supreme Alliance will have a tough match. This is the Asian Cup after all, but I believe in each team's ability. The shoutcasters were from different countries and with them, it would be easier for them to look at the situation. Rao Rong is up, I remember he has always been a team controller. Is he really fine in a solo match? You don't know about this. In fact, for a long time, when Rao Rong was in another team, even when he was the team controller, he dealt the most damage in the entire team. That shows how strong he is in solo fights. Moreover, as a starter, it is normal to admit that there is a lot of psychological pressure. Rather than saying that solo fights are a competition of skills, it is more accurate to say that the bigger the competition, the more emphasis is placed on the player's ability to withstand pressure. Theo's solo player doesn't seem to be under much pressure. There is indeed a difference. Theo's lineup has never changed and the first player is used to the rhythm. More importantly, even if he loses this match, with Theo's ability, he has faith in his teammates to win. Rao Rong's situation is different, he has been through so many things and has just joined Supreme Alliance, he might be under a lot of pressure. Soon, the shoutcaster caught sight of the figure on the screen and broke into laughter. It seems like my analysis was wrong, Rao Rong's positioning is extremely skilled. This will be a highly anticipated solo match. Indeed, the moment Rao Rong put on his earpiece, he seemed to have transformed into a different person. As expected of the sole control of the entire team. That was probably the reason Feng Yi had chosen Rao Rong as the first player. That was because no matter what competition he was in, he would never be affected by the outside world. Time trickled by. The battle was getting more and more intense, causing everyone to be very nervous. Very soon, the Supreme Alliance members realized something. Theo wasn't a weakling, he was able to predict Rao Rong's position and deal damage. Anxiety seeped out from everyone's hearts. It was a full 10 minutes of battle. Both of them returned to the city with low HP. Soon, someone noticed a problem. If this goes on, Supreme Alliance will definitely lose. Why? At the end of the day, Rao Rong is best suited as a team controller. The team controller has to coordinate with his teammates to bring out his strongest side. Now that he has been placed in this position, it is obvious that Supreme Alliance wants to win this match. No, it should be said that Supreme Alliance wants to win the first 2 matches. It would be best if they don't engage in the last team battle with Theo because they know that with their current lineup, they won't be able to win. Hence, they sent Rao Rong. In terms of speed, technique, and condition, Rao Rong is undoubtedly outstanding. After all, he is one of the 3 pillars along with Qin Mo and Xiao Jing. But the team controller's damage isn't high. If the battle drags on, Rao Rong will be finished. Just as he finished speaking, Yi Zichen's eyes widened. The other player was already heading towards Rao Rong. Everyone's eyes widened in shock. Just as everyone thought Rao Rong was about to be caught, he moved nimbly and turned the tables. Supreme Alliance had won this single battle. Shui Yaoyao watched from the side. She paused for a moment, then turned around and hugged Coco, who was still biting the rabbit's ear. Her happiness seemed to be contagious. Well done. When Rao Rong returned, everyone patted him on the shoulder. He lifted his lips into a smile, clearly in a good mood. But soon, they realized the problem. Theo's team members were lazy, as though it didn't matter even if they lost the single match. You should be aware of Supreme Alliance's standard, Theo's captain said. The 2 of them stood up with a smile. The single match isn't bad, but if it's against Supreme Alliance's strongest player, Supreme Alliance will soon realize the difference in strength. Don't underestimate them, Theo's captain replied, but he didn't refute his teammates' words. The experienced shoutcaster glanced over, speaking into the microphone. I'm guessing from the start of the double match, Theo is going to unleash its true strength. Based on Theo's usual style, they would indeed use a single match to gauge their opponent's strength. Besides, they are used to placing their stronger players at the back. Supreme Alliance has to take this seriously. Supreme Alliance had to take this seriously. But it was hard to imagine how the double match would turn out. Their teamwork was flawless, their maneuvering was sharp, and they had plundered their jungle's resources at the start of the match. Before Uncle Ian and Lin Feng could work together, the jungle's resources were gone. The resources in the wilderness would be gone and the economy would suffer a huge loss. Everyone could feel Theo's menacing aura. It wasn't a one-on-one match that had lasted nearly 40 minutes. This time, they were starting to reveal their true abilities. F***CK. Lin Feng noticed the change in their tactics. He started to move closer to Yin Weiyao, preparing to ambush the top lane. But the opponent didn't take the bait. It was fine if they didn't take the bait. The news of the tyrant being killed appeared on the screen. The economic gap had been doubled in an instant. Lin Feng's face fell. He quickly realized that the opponent had revealed himself to divert his attention, allowing the bottom lane to focus on killing the tyrant. Such a ploy. Such a simple ploy. He actually hadn't noticed it. In reality, Lin Feng wasn't to be blamed. No one had expected the tyrant to be used so early and with a support tank. But when they saw the equipment, they realized it had been premeditated. A wild knife, specially used to deal with wild beasts. It was all part of his plan. The audience could see with their own eyes how difficult it had been for Supreme Alliance to fight the double match. After all, the difference in their economy was too great. Fortunately, Lin Feng was smarter this time. He didn't dwell on the mistake, instead, he did what he had to do. The players on Theo's side raised their eyebrows when they saw this. I didn't expect him to be so composed. It seems like some information can't be fully trusted. We killed the tyrant but he's still so composed. Supreme Alliance isn't too bad. They glanced at each other with their headphones on. With a swipe of their right hands, they vanished from the map in unison. The ordinary audience couldn't tell what was going on. However, the team that appeared in the spectator stand saw it very clearly. Supreme Alliance is going to lose the double match. When someone heard this, he subconsciously wanted to refute. But when he turned around and saw who was speaking, he felt as if his throat was blocked. Hoshino. It was actually Hoshino. Everyone knew that Hoshino's judgment was extremely accurate when it came to such matters. He seemed to be very unwilling to say this sentence. His eyes were looking at the screen, and his pupils were a little black. As for the fans sitting in the audience, they could not help but shout. The Japanese. It's really the Japanese. They're so cool. That's strange, aren't they still competing? Why are they here? Wait a minute, the audience and reporters seem to be heading over. What do you mean? F*CK, is the Japanese over? The person watching the live stream shook his phone. It took an hour, but they only used 20 minutes to crush them. During the double match, they used 40 minutes because of Peach's recklessness. It was a best of 3 and they gave up on the last match. The person's mouth fell open. After a long moment of hesitation, he added, as expected of the Japanese. Compared to the Japanese's ease. Supreme Alliance was in a predicament. Lin Feng and Yin Wuiao weren't useless. Perhaps it was due to the opponent's strategy, but it gave off the feeling that Supreme Alliance was being suppressed by the opponent. That Lin Feng seems to have sensed something. A member of the Japanese team said. Hoshino replied, "It's too late." Yes, it was too late. This was the first time Yin Wuiao realized his hand's speed couldn't keep up with his thoughts. Even though their support had died twice. But this was Yin Wuiao's third death. Lin Feng wouldn't be able to win the 2-against-1. As expected, Supreme Alliance lost the double match. Even with the compliments from their opponents, Supreme Alliance didn't get excited. They knew how passive they were in this double match. Lin Feng hung his head, apologizing. "I'm sorry." Yunhu reached out to press down on his shoulder. "There's nothing to be sorry about. It's my turn, aren't you going to smile at me?" At this stage, everyone knew that Supreme Alliance wasn't going to be easy. The Theo team's ability could be seen from the double match. When Hoshino said that it was too late, he didn't just mean that they were late for the doubles. From the start, Supreme Alliance hadn't forced out all of Theo's abilities. Hence, it was too late to continue. Besides, Supreme Alliance wasn't going to use their strongest formation for the team battle. Everyone was worried about whether Lin Chintao's jungler would be able to set up the tempo. Theo's captain smiled. "Alright, since Chin Mo isn't around, stick to the original plan, destroy their jungler. That way, they won't be able to retaliate. Sometimes, we have to thank the spectators." Yes, they had to thank them. Chapter 1345. The shoutcasters knew what was happening, but even if they knew Supreme Alliance was in a precarious situation, they wouldn't say it out loud. They weren't newbies in international competitions. They knew better than anyone the changes in Supreme Alliance over the past few years. Perhaps some teams were destined to miss out on the championship. The professionals flipped through the information knowingly, waiting for the two teams to begin to reveal the names of the players. They had about 3 minutes to consider. After all, the team battle would decide the final victory. Time seemed to pass slowly. Lin Feng could see Feng Yi standing in the corner, seemingly at a loss for words. He probably wanted to smile at them as he lifted the corners of his lips. Unknowingly, it started to snow outside. It seemed to be the first snow in Jiang City. The snow was small, almost melting the moment it landed on his shoulders. But a child in a black down jacket stood there, staring at the ticket in his hands. He didn't move or speak. The ticketing officer didn't know what to do. "Kid, aren't you cold standing there? Hurry and go home, it's the same next year." "It's not the same." The child lifted his head, his cat eyes beautiful. "Supreme Alliance is participating this year, the team I'm going to join." The ticketing officer stilled, his first reaction was to laugh. "How old are you? Why are you thinking of gaming?" "No matter how old you are, underage children have to be accompanied by their parents, do you understand? As long as there's a parent." The child asked, shifting his gaze towards the skirt that was flying over. Then he walked over, standing beside the person. "She is, let's go in together." The ticketing officer laughed. "Kid, I'm not stupid, don't pull a passerby and say she's your parent." "Passerby?" The child frowned, looking adorable. "She isn't a passerby." Before he could reply, the ticketing officer added, "Even if she isn't a passerby, only one person can enter with one ticket. Parents can wait in the resting area." Hearing that, the person frowned. He couldn't barge in, because if he did, he would be disqualified. He raised his head and saw the countdown timer on the screen. It was too late for Feng Yi to come out, and this entrance was the fastest way to reach the arena. Then, "Brother Ticket Inspector, please let her in." The child turned around with his school bag on his back. It was obvious that he had a good upbringing. "I'll watch from the lounge." The ticket inspector was confused again. "You're not going in. Why were you so persistent just now?" The woman raised her eyebrows and looked at the little bean beside her. "You're willing to part with it?" "Yes, it doesn't matter if I go in or not, but you must go in." After the child finished speaking, he probably felt that he wasn't enthusiastic enough. After thinking for a while, he raised his hand and clenched it into a fist. "All the best." Did he recognize her? "Thank you." The man didn't act pretentiously. He rubbed the child's head and looked in the direction of the ticketing staff. When the ticketing officer let them through, he was still confused. After all, he really couldn't understand why the little boy in front of him would smile so sweetly when he saw the back view of that person walking in quickly. He had observed that the child had been standing there for half an hour with a paralyzed expression. Now that he had given the ticket to someone else, he was smiling. What kind of trick was this? At this moment, another child ran over from the other side. He looked similar to the one in the black down jacket and asked mysteriously, "Why aren't you going in yet? I even wore a dress for you. You don't know how nervous I was when Dad looked at me just now." Mo Bay, F***CK, paralyzed little face, what are you smiling about? Brother. What? What was wrong with his sister today? I gave the ticket to someone else. Is that something to be happy about? Softer, Dad and Mom are nearby. No, why did you give the ticket to someone else? Because, the ticketing officer perked up his ears, but before he could hear it clearly, a commotion came from the screen behind him. It was time for the match. The host smiled as he turned the microphone over. "All right, the members of both teams have decided on their team members for the team battle. Supreme Alliance has Yunhu, Coco, Shui Yao Yao, and, just as the shoutcaster was about to announce Lin Chintao's name, there was a loud swoosh. It wasn't just the host, even the shoutcasters turned to look over. What's going on? The stage control was about to signal when the director held onto his wrist. He gestured for the staff to move the camera over. At the entrance, a person walked over slowly. The first thing that caught everyone's attention was the black skirt. Following that, the team uniform draped over her shoulders fluttered in the wind, creating a loud sound as the two words were blown out. She was still holding a ticket in her hand. Her hair was messy, but it didn't affect the beauty that she exuded. She glanced up, following the host's words with a light chuckle. And spade Z, in an instant. The entire bird's nest was silent. The sound seemed to have stopped at that moment. Everyone felt as if their acupoints had been poked, and they were frozen in place. It wasn't just because of her appearance. It was also because she was wearing female clothing. However, the person under the spotlight didn't seem to notice their reactions. She smiled. Our captain isn't here today, so I will be leading Supreme Alliance. Almighty Z. We support you. What's the meaning of wearing female clothing? Is she here to apologize? Ignore what they say, focus on the competition. Swoosh. The crowd was out of control. It had been quiet before, but now, there was a huge uproar. There were so many voices that it wasn't possible to identify them. The click rate soared. They couldn't tell anything from the crowd. However, there were more than 1,000 comments in a second. F***CK, what did I just see? My Almighty is wearing female clothing. Almighty Z is so beautiful. Demoness attack. My big spade. I feel like I'm falling in love with someone else. What should I do? Is my hubby that handsome today? Female clothing. I'm drooling. Please give my Almighty some screen time, female clothing. Screenshot, I want a screenshot. There are so many scenes. It wasn't that there weren't any negative comments, but that person just stood there as if she didn't hear anything. Her long dress matched her battle uniform, her eyes were clear, and her side profile was extremely beautiful. The smile at the corner of her mouth made every fan feel that it was familiar, but also different. In the past, she was a mischievous youngster. Her laughter was seductive. Now, people couldn't describe that feeling. But when a few true Spade fans saw her walk to the exit zone, for some reason, they grabbed onto their best friend's hand and burst into tears. It wasn't because they were sad but because they were touched. They knew very well why she had specially worn a dress. In order to make sure that there wasn't a single part of the competition that people couldn't hold on to. Just as she said, she stood there, clean and innocent. Lin Feng wanted to hug her, but he retracted his hand. He could clearly hear his words. F***CK, after changing into a dress, I can't bear to do it. I suddenly feel like a beast. Bojo reached out and pulled him back. She hugged him with one hand and patted his back coolly. You're as submissive, you don't have to feel such a burden. Good sister, I'll help you win it back later. Sister. Me. Sister. Lin Feng pointed at her before pointing at himself. He turned to look at Feng Yi. Feng Yi smiled, a relaxed smile that seemed to be reflecting light in his eyes. It seems like I can retire as the temporary leader. With that, he walked towards the committee, speaking in a low voice. The three of them nodded and gestured to the host. All right. The host turned towards the camera. In the nick of time, Supreme Alliance's spiritual jungler, Spade Z, has returned. Hence, they have made some adjustments to their lineup. Supreme Alliance's team members are Spade Z, Yunhu, Lin Chintao, Coco, and Shui Yaoyao. As for Theo's team members, no one was listening to the host anymore. Everyone's gaze was on the person who was about to enter the arena. The number of views online had exceeded 100 million. The director knew what the people in front of the computer wanted to see. Hence, the camera remained glued to Bojo's face. She actually dressed up as a girl. The Japanese had the same reaction. Watanabe scratched his head in frustration. What I want to say is, will I really lose to a girl like me? Why does she look so annoying when she's dressed as a boy? But now that she's dressed as a girl, Ah, how am I supposed to play in the future? I'll pity her. Vice Captain, what do you mean by that? Hoshino didn't look at him. His gaze seemed to be fixated on a certain point ever since she had appeared. Even the smile on his face seemed gentler. Watanabe stilled, grabbing his hair again. I seem to have accidentally found out a secret. Oh. You see, Shin arched a brow, a nonchalant smile on his face. What secret did you find out? Watanabe jumped. Captain, as someone with experience, look at Vice Captain's expression when he looks at Spade Z. It's obvious he has something to say. Also, he has never been interested in any team in the past but has always been interested in Supreme Alliance. I used to think it was because of Supreme Alliance's skills, but now, it seems like he already knew Spade Z was a girl. Captain, if Supreme Alliance wins this match, will Vice Captain go easy on Spade Z tomorrow? But I won't be able to bear to lay my hands on such a beautiful girl. Can't bear to lay your hands on her. You see, Shin laughed viciously. Then you can wait for her to kill you. Watanabe shuddered. For some reason, his captain's smile seemed especially cold. The competition is starting, I wonder how Spade Z is going to play this time. A voice came from the audience. Let's watch. That sentence reflected the Theo team's current mood. They had done their research on Spade Z. After all, she was a dark horse in this year's esports scene. They had done a lot of research on her videos and had a thorough understanding of them. From the way she played, they couldn't tell that she was a girl. When the news had first been released, they had been shocked. Now that they had seen her in person, they looked back at themselves. Did Supreme Alliance pick their members based on their looks? Why were they all so beautiful? But regardless, their strategy wouldn't change. They would destroy the opposing jungler. Besides, according to tradition, Spade Z would probably choose an assassin with an invisibility ability. That was the conclusion they came to from the data. It wasn't just the Theo team, even the fans who were familiar with Spade Z's playstyle were waiting for the assassin who had helped Spade Z obtain numerous first clears to appear. However, no one would have thought that something would happen. She had actually chosen another character in the game. That is, Almighty Chin's destined hero. There was a smacking sound. Bojo held onto the mouse and clicked confirm. She raised her hands and placed the earpiece over her head. She didn't know if it was because she was wearing a dress, but she looked especially fair today. Her slender fingers were almost transparent under the light. On the countdown timer, the shoutcaster explained the situation. To prevent the competition from being boring, the shoutcaster explained, honestly, I'm surprised by Spade Z's choice of character. Why? Do you think she isn't good? It isn't bad, everyone knows that she is an all-round player, but in terms of proficiency, she doesn't seem to have much experience. Indeed, Chin Mo has always been the one using it. Alright, enough talking. From the screen, we can all see that the members of both teams have already walked out of the spring. Wait a minute. MH? Theo seems to have an idea. The screen zoomed in. The crowd clearly saw two figures behind Theo dashing across the jungle and the river. The ones in charge of guarding the middle and top lane were leaning slightly towards the jungle. They're planning to ambush us. That's right, this dance. It wasn't to negate Supreme Alliance's blue buff but to outflank Supreme Alliance's jungler, Spade Z. Rao Rong's pupils constricted. Even he, who had fought one-on-one with Theo before, did not expect them to have such a fighting style, let alone those who had just entered the arena. This was completely different from their previous conservative style. F***CK, it can't be. Why are they playing so high? The audience couldn't help but admit that such an opening made them even more eager to watch. After all, Supreme Alliance hadn't noticed anything yet. They were all fighting for their finances. According to the usual play style, the more money one had, the stronger one's attack. From their perspective, there wasn't anything amiss. The more it was like this, the more it meant a message. Chapter 1346. The moment the thought entered their minds, a loud click came from the screen. Theo's tank had a stun effect. With a swing of his hammer, Bojo froze on the spot. Everyone who played the game knew that control was the most important thing for an assassin. If she was controlled, she wouldn't be able to escape. Besides, there was a tank and a long-range attack. After the signal to attack, the opponent's sorcerer had rushed over to provide support. In an instant, Spade Z's HP dropped by half. She didn't even need to fight in the wilderness. Theo's assassin seemed to have been waiting for this moment. He raised his long spear and leaped in, intending to deal all the damage to her. Right at this moment, Bojo moved her right hand. Bojo sat in front of the screen and moved her right hand. The mouse glowed and everyone could see the lines that appeared in that instant. She moved with agility, avoiding the big move. Theo's assassin missed his target. But even so, Spade Z was still in a dangerous situation. Moreover, under normal circumstances, as an assassin, when fighting in a high-level match, he should be prepared in advance to see if the other party would come over to attack him. Not only had they been robbed, but they had also been forced into such a corner by Theo. Some started to wonder if Spade Z's abilities had deteriorated. Her mana has been snatched and she's suffering from the start. Spade Z's maneuvers just now are too average. Some of the audience, who already thought Bojo was a drama queen, seized the opportunity to mock her. With such skills, she can't lead a team. Since she left, she shouldn't have come back. Seriously, the tickets are a waste. I don't want to watch such a boring match. Unlike the audience, the fans were really anxious. They leaned forward, worried for Bojo. On the screen, her HP was getting lower and lower. It can't be. Was Spade Z, the FC King, going to sacrifice the first HP in the team battle? Spade Z's fans are going to be slapped in the face. Everyone's attention was focused on the magnified screen. The director had also focused on the main scene. Since Spade Z was the focus of everyone's attention, it would be more exciting to watch the match from her point of view. Hence, the discussion grew louder. Even the bullet screen was filled with comments. After all, this was the scene being broadcasted. But soon enough, the veteran esports fans noticed a problem. Why wasn't anyone helping Spade Z? Supreme Alliance wasn't at this level. Even if Shui Yao Yao was a newbie and didn't know how to support. But what about the others? Was this Spade Z's commanding skills? You don't even send a signal when you encounter a problem. Isn't he a little too arrogant? It seemed like Spade Z was only suited for individual battles and wasn't suited for team battles. It was a pity that Rao Rong had already represented Supreme Alliance during the 1v1. If Rao Rong had been the commander, the outcome might have been different. Just as this thought popped up in everyone's mind, they felt that Supreme Alliance's jungler was about to collapse. Suddenly, a sound effect appeared on the screen. KO. The first blood. Strange. On the screen, Spade Z wasn't dead. Then why would there be such a sound effect? All of a sudden, everyone was puzzled and perplexed. They didn't understand what was going on. Soon, the big screen gave the answer. It was the support on the other side of Theo who was only planning to reinforce the troops. Heavens! It wasn't just the audience that was in disbelief. Even Theo's captain was shocked. How did this happen? In an instant, the situation turned chaotic. Bojo, who was sitting in front of the computer, slid her right hand and moved nimbly. She retreated to the bottom of the turret with a low amount of HP, just in time to feed herself a blood pack. But this was not the point. The point was that people could clearly hear the 3 words spitting out from her thin lips, "All right, retreat." The next second, the bullet screen went crazy. F***CK, what exactly is going on? Please explain. I can't believe my ears, was my big spade giving an order? The netizens weren't the only ones who had this question, even the audience was confused. When the replay was shown, the audience realized that Spade Z hadn't been caught in the jungle. That was when they realized that Spade Z hadn't been ambushed. Instead, she had sensed the opponent's intentions beforehand and had sent a signal to the entire team to attack Theo's support. Hence, when the opponent had come to their jungle, she hadn't reacted on purpose. She had wanted Theo to take the bait and assume that she had been controlled. That way, they would focus on killing her or guarding against reinforcements. However, they hadn't expected that they would be hiding in the bushes to ambush the support. F***CK, this trick of luring the tiger away from the mountain is too good. She didn't just take the first HP, the entire jungle on Theo's right is empty. My almighty Z is telling the opponent that if he dares to use his blue, I'll get my teammate to take the first HP and clear his entire jungle. That's amazing. It was indeed unexpected. No one had expected such an outcome. If one thought about it carefully, one would realize that such a plan to lure the tiger away from the mountain was not something that just anyone could pull off. Firstly, one had to be clear of the opponent's intentions and make a certain level of judgment. Next, one had to have precise positioning to ensure that one would be able to buy time for one's teammate and ensure that one wouldn't die. It was a difficult feat that not many could pull off. It's so cool. That was so cool. The people who had been mocking her kept their mouths shut after witnessing this scene. They were clear on one point. It wasn't that Spade Z's fans had been slapped in the face, but they had been too biased. This seems to be the first time Spade Z has used such a method to start a match. The shoutcaster was a professional. It's novel and impressive. The other person chuckled. Indeed, I'm not sure if you have noticed, but she has completely adapted to her role as a team leader. Using such a method to take the first HP is in consideration of the overall situation. She is now an assassin and also a team controller. I don't know why, but I can see Chin Mo's shadow in her. Honestly, if I were to participate in a match now, they would be the opponents I wouldn't want to face. They are too strong, be it individual battles or assisting the team. In the past, Spade Z's advantage in this aspect hadn't been revealed yet. I reckon Theo's side wouldn't have expected her to use such a method, using herself as bait to allow the team to take the first HP. This is completely different from the way she used to sweep the opponent's jungle alone. It wasn't just different, it was a huge blow to Theo's head. But this alone wasn't enough to secure victory. After all, Theo's skills were obvious. But it had to be said that the mistaken strategy was a huge blow to them. They couldn't stay in Supreme Alliance's jungle any longer. One of the towers in the bottom lane had been destroyed and they had to return quickly. Shui Yao Yao from Supreme Alliance's middle lane and the experienced Yun who had already gathered over. Hence, they had to flee. Right at this moment, the figure that was supposed to be under the tower suddenly darted over. She cut off the back line sorcerer that was trying to retreat. K.O. Dumbfounded. Everyone was dumbfounded. They hadn't expected Spade Z to rush out with less than half of her HP. Wasn't she courting death? Even if she killed someone, she wouldn't be able to escape. Theo's reaction was swift. Just as he was about to destroy the other party, the figure held a wine flask and with a flash of her sword, she was back under the tower. First skill, displacement. F***CK, that maneuver is amazing. That's the true meaning of first blood. Is my big spade learning from Almighty Qin? He retreated instantly after killing someone. The crowd was getting out of control. They had never seen it before. In the Asian Cup, China had never achieved such an amazing result. This time, even some of the haters were silenced. They couldn't be haters. Her maneuvers were too heaven-defying. The atmosphere on Theo's side was starting to change. They had assumed that with the information they had, they could deal with Supreme Alliance. It was the same even if Spade Z was around. But now, they realized that the information they had was just information. Because when they truly competed against Supreme Alliance, they would realize how fast they were growing. Moreover, Spade Z was an assassin that no one could predict when or how she would strike. A second ago, when they thought she wasn't fast enough, they realized she was just bait and wouldn't move recklessly. The next second, she dared to attack with half of her HP, using her recovery skill to kill someone. Theo was really feeling the pressure. Their captain changed his style as he turned to the side and said something to the rest of the team. It was obvious that Theo's strategy had changed. They started to play steadily, ensuring that their jungle resources weren't taken by Spade Z. Next, they took a kill in the middle lane, pulling the score from 2-0 to 2-1. Gradually, everyone began to fully immerse themselves in the match. They were evenly matched. That was the mood of the spectators. At this stage, it will depend on who is more skilled. Yu Cixin placed his hands behind his back, whistling devilishly before his voice deepened. But I'm curious why Qin Mo isn't participating in such a competition. Even if he lost his memory, he shouldn't be absent. Hoshino tilted his head. What are you trying to say? Chapter 1347. Their captain left. The rest of the Japanese would definitely follow. Watanabe watched Yu Cixin's back view before turning towards them. Vice Captain, you guys can leave first, I'll take a look. Hoshino lifted his thin lips, a smile that was hard to reject. The more Watanabe thought about it, the more interested his vice captain was in Spade Z. His interest was way out of line. There was no love in the esports industry. But judging from his vice captain's intentions, Watanabe shook his head, his expression unreadable. Hoshino didn't seem to mind the misunderstanding from his teammates, his gaze fixed on Bojo the entire time. The battle on the screen continued to be intense. But when the screen switched to Bojo, everyone saw her sharp reflexes, the numerous strategies she devised, the way she predicted Theo's movements and swiftly provided support. She didn't just command the battle, she would also cut the back line at the most crucial moment to take down the enemy. But Theo wasn't weak either, he never suffered any losses in the team battle. Spade Z took down one of their members. They only took one Supreme Alliance member. The team battle went on for more than 50 minutes. In the last match, Theo was still thinking about how to counter Bojo's predictions. Unexpectedly, this time, Bojo didn't make any predictions. Instead, she used her best play style, leaping in and taking down all the attackers, exchanging 1 for 3. After the explosive damage, Theo didn't have an ADC, sorcerer, or top laner. How was he going to continue? Supreme Alliance pushed forward, destroying Theo's Crystal City. The screen zoomed in. Everyone saw her removing her headphones, wearing a dress as she picked up a bottle of mineral water. They won. She wasn't just the assassin, she was also the leader of Supreme Alliance. Everyone knew very well that this last exchange of 1 for 3 was worth it. It was just like Almighty Qin's thinking. Soon, everyone's results appeared on the screen. Spade Z, the MVP of the match. Many Negroes were speechless at this moment. Other than Qin Mo, none of the other Chinese players had achieved such results. Spade Z was the first. Both inside and outside the stadium, there was a huge commotion. After 3 years, this was the closest the Chinese team was to the championship. The media couldn't hold it in any longer, wanting to interview Bojo the most. The audience cheered too. Other than Shui Yaoyao, no one knew how pale the person beside her was. Just now, when she was commanding the battle, her hand accidentally touched her. Shui Yaoyao froze at that moment because the body temperature was too high. It was so high that she was in a daze. Highness Jiu was having a fever. That was her first reaction. But before she could do anything, that person's voice came, "Don't leave the middle lane, Yaoyao, don't be distracted." Shui Yaoyao could only focus because she knew that the sooner the competition ended, the more rest he could get. Perhaps, other than this group of teammates, no one would know under what circumstances this battle command was completed. Looking at the increasing number of people, the man raised his head to drink water and lowered his arms. Shui Yaoyao stood in front of her. Bojo knew she was running a fever since even her breath was hot. That was why she kept drinking water. When she saw Shui Yaoyao's actions, she smiled. "It's fine, I can handle it. Leave the media to Boss Feng." Shui Yaoyao took a moment before adding, "You can walk from the back, Coco will follow you." Coco didn't know what had happened. He was extremely happy after winning the competition, his face full of smiles. Shui Yaoyao had already sent Feng Yi a message. When Feng Yi saw it, he immediately gestured to his assistant and blocked the crowd that was approaching. "Friends from the media, I know everyone wants to get the first-hand interview information. Don't be anxious, there will be a chance, as long as everyone comes one by one." With that, he gestured behind him to lead her away. Shui Yaoyao didn't delay, blocking the crowd with Coco and taking the chance to bring Bojo backstage to Supreme Alliance's lounge. Fever. Coco's handsome face was distorted. "How did you get a fever?" Bojo didn't explain, she just smiled and opened the wardrobe, removing her uniform. She seemed to be taking Lin Feng's black down jacket. "No, little spade, you're burning up, where are you going?" Coco pressed her down, his face stern. "Don't go anywhere, wait for old Fox Feng to come over and take you to the hospital for an injection." Bojo pushed his hand away. "It's just a small cold, I have something to do." "What do you have?" Coco looked as though he wouldn't let her go no matter what. What a joke, he could feel the heat through her clothes. "Where did you go yesterday? How did you end up like this?" Bojo took another sip of water to clear her mind. "I didn't go anywhere." Actually, Coco knew something must have happened yesterday. At the start, Captain had said he was going to buy candies for Little Spade and then he disappeared. Little Spade had gone to look for Captain but hadn't returned the entire night. The next time she had appeared, she was alone. Coco didn't ask where Captain was because he was afraid it would upset Little Spade. But how did she end up like this? Could it be? "You didn't sleep the entire night?" Coco's eyes widened. Bojo paused, but didn't reply. She reached for the black mask beside her, preparing to wear it so that she wouldn't be recognized. Coco watched her, knowing that his guess was right. His eyes widened but he didn't know that his guess was only half right. Bojo hadn't slept the entire night, she had stood downstairs for an hour so that he could see her. In order to prevent any blemishes from the competition, she had worn a long dress that wasn't warm at all. Perhaps, no one would ever be able to see her good intentions. Only friends could empathize with her. Shui Yaoyao stood at the side, lifting her face. She was afraid she would cry because her heart was really aching. Coco wanted to call Feng Yi because he was the only one who could persuade Little Spade to go for the injection. But when that person reached out and held onto his wrist, saying, "Coco, I have to go now, I have to go to Brother Mo's place before I lose him again." He couldn't make the call no matter how hard he tried. He knew he shouldn't stop her. Bojo smiled. With the mask on, only her dark eyes could be seen. The long black down jacket covered her figure perfectly. She wasn't acting out a drama. Bojo knew she had to get better. But the more she walked, the heavier her breathing became. It was only when she stopped that she realized her body couldn't handle the high fever. Gradually, the voices in his ears became indistinct. All he could hear was more and more noise, as if the media had barged in. At this moment, she heard a voice from the other side. Hoshino. It's Hoshino, why is he here? Hoshino glanced at them, reaching over with one hand, silently tossing a bottle of medicine over. Bojo caught it, watching as he stood there, intentionally shielding her. She turned and walked towards the emergency exit. The media wasn't aware of her action since Hoshino was a hot topic, all their attention was on his face. Hoshino smiled faintly as he answered the reporters' questions. When Feng-yi walked over, he nodded, stuffing a hand into his pocket, brushing past him. Feng-yi was a smart man, he could tell with one look that Hoshino had taken over his job. The two of them walked towards the lounge together. When there was no one around, Feng-yi said, "Thank you." Hoshino paused, breaking into a smile. "It's nothing. From the information I received, Hoshino isn't someone who would do such a small thing." Feng-yi was indeed the smiling prince. Hoshino was still as elegant as ever. "It seems like Boss Fang's information is wrong, I'm a caring person. Besides, I'm looking forward to tomorrow's competition, I wouldn't want my opponent to be held back by such trivial matters." Just an opponent. Feng-yi didn't beat around the bush, going straight to the point. Hoshino lifted his lips. "It seems like everyone knows I like C. That's right, she isn't just an opponent, she's my family." Family? Feng-yi didn't understand. He had assumed that Hoshino's actions were all because of love. But the moment he said the word family, Feng-yi wasn't sure. At the same time, in a building in the west of the city, Fan Jia started the countdown. There were 4 hours left. The person in front of her belonged to her. But there was something that made Fan Jia frown. Since this morning, he had been standing in front of the window without saying a word. No matter what she said, he would only reply with 1 or 2 words. Sometimes, he wouldn't even speak. Fan Jia hated this situation. The more she thought about it, the more she realized why he was standing there. Who was he looking at but didn't see? She clenched her fists, testing his reaction again. She could tell that he would do everything she said. Fan Jia was happy again. Just as she was about to leave, she saw him looking out of the window. There was actually a taxi parked there. The person who got out of the taxi was wearing a knee-length black down jacket. He raised his head and looked in their direction. Then he strolled over to the Lamborghini that he had never driven away before. Fan Jia didn't know it was her at first. But she noticed the glint in Qin Mo's eyes the moment she appeared. Fan Jia was really jealous. She was standing right in front of him. But he didn't even look at her. She had assumed that was his personality. But now, it seemed like it wasn't enough. Then she would end everything prematurely. Fan Jia's gaze darkened, meeting the figure outside the window. Bojo wasn't aware of the situation upstairs. She couldn't keep standing outside since she had to consider her health. Hence, her first reaction was to get into the car. When little Blackie heard her voice, he immediately said, "Master, your little vixen is still upstairs, she hasn't come down. Don't worry." Bojo felt much more at ease after reaching here. But now, she wasn't worried about the Almighty leaving. Instead, she was worried about the time. The time was getting closer and she couldn't think of a better way to help the Almighty regain his memory. Bojo tugged open her collar, leaned her head against the steering wheel and drank a fever pill. But even then, the AI system in the car detected her high body temperature. Little Blackie's voice rang again. Master, the report shows that your stamina has reached its limit. As the Fifth Avenue's racing god, I have to use my professional knowledge to inform you that you need treatment. Oh, why isn't Grandfather Butler around? If he was around, he wouldn't allow you to act so recklessly. Bojo didn't reply, maintaining her position. Little Blackie started to panic, flashing its lights continuously so that someone could see it. It was sending a signal. Upstairs, Chin Mo stood in front of the window. He had thought that after that person appeared, he would soon see that face that made him feel peaceful for some reason. 5 minutes passed, but she was still in the car. Chin Mo tapped the side of his long legs, feeling uneasy. He wanted to head downstairs. Fan Jia noticed the change in his emotions, chuckling lightly. Brother Mo, where are you going? Who's going to protect me after you leave? They are still watching me. The moment you leave, I don't know if there will be snipers shooting. These words were indeed effective. Because Chin Mo had one hand in his pocket, and he stopped there. But his heart and actions were far apart. It would definitely hurt. The moment Chin Mo paused, his chest felt as though it was being torn apart. He leaned against the wall, his fingers gripping the amulet, as though that was the only way to alleviate the pain. Seeing this, Fan Jia wanted to take the chance to take the amulet away. She hated this amulet to the core. Besides, this was Chin Mo's weakest moment. The last thing he relied on was gone. He probably wouldn't be paying attention to Z like before. With this thought in mind, Fan Jia reached her hand out and added a voice message. Brother Mo, are you feeling unwell? I know this is a gift from me and it's very important. I'll keep it safe for you. You'll break it. Chin Mo's eyes turned bloodshot. He wanted to move his hand several times, but there was always a voice telling him not to hurt the person in front of him, to protect her. That voice was like a curse, imprinting itself in his mind. Fan Jia saw this and knew that the last step of the hypnosis was about to be completed. She smiled, wanting to take the amulet away. But just at the moment when she let his hand leave the amulet, he was shocked. She didn't know why his hand was raised. There was a tearing sound. Chapter 1348. When she had heard the tearing sound, Fan Jia had been secretly delighted. She had finally gotten rid of this thing. But when she saw the thing on the ground, her expression changed. It was a photo. The photo should have been taken with a Polaroid. The colors were bright. In the photo, the sun was shining brightly. A little girl wearing a tiger costume was pouncing towards a little boy. She was smiling beautifully, as though she had been dipped in sugar. The little boy was very cold, and his expression was hard to describe. However, he reached out and held the little girl's waist, as if he was afraid that she would touch him, or afraid that she would fall on her own. Even the corners of his mouth were slightly pursed, but it was not because he hated her, but because he felt a little helpless. His eyes were filled with tenderness. It was easy to think of an ancient Chinese poem. The first time a concubine's hair touched her forehead, the drama of folding flowers in front of the door. Her husband rode a bamboo horse, circling the bed to play with green plums. In reality, this wasn't the main point of the photo. Under the photo, there was a beautiful sentence written in block letters. If God exists, I hope this idiot wearing a tiger costume can live a peaceful and happy life. So this amulet, from the day he had gotten it, hadn't been for him to pray for his own blessings. All these years, the treasure he had kept with him was for another person's blessings. In that instant, Fan Jia was filled with hatred. Her first reaction was to destroy the photo. But that slender, fair hand was one step ahead of her, pressing down on the photo, allowing her to raise her leg and step on his index finger. Fan Jia had used a lot of strength. It was impossible for it not to hurt, but Qin Mo didn't even blink. His handsome side profile was still in the dim light. It was as though the little girl in the photo was the only thing left in his eyes. His fingers slid down the tiger hat on her head, and something in his heart seemed to melt. He could almost hear the sound of a lock being unlocked. He was most afraid of losing this person. The scene in the photo seemed to have been imbued with a sense of perspective. Scene after scene, it flashed across his mind. She pounced over and hugged him. "Momo, how much for a kilo? I'll buy you." She refused to go home and sleep, hugging her little keyboard. "This is my favorite toy, I'll give it to you. Let me sleep for one night, just one night." She was very obedient when she laid on his bed. It was hard to imagine that someone as troublesome as her would be obedient. She would always lean over in the end. "If I hug you, you won't want to go back to China anymore." "Yeah, what I mean is, you don't have to miss home so much." He had fallen sick, but even his grandfather hadn't noticed. She was the only one who had hugged him. She didn't cry and went to look for the family doctor. After he caught a cold, he was afraid that she would be infected, so he deliberately placed a lot of flower pots by the window to prevent her from coming again. However, even the gods could not stop the little tiger. She had to climb in with a black face. She spent a lot of effort to educate him. "You can't treat your little friend like this." She found all sorts of reasons to sleep with him. Every time they ate, she would give him what he liked. Whatever he liked, he would definitely see her bring it over the next day. Even though her grandfather didn't know what he was interested in, she knew it clearly. The way she smiled, the way her eyes turned red, the way she would press him against the wall after she grew up, the way her lips curved slightly. She had never been anyone. She had always been that idiot who had treated him as a girl. Fan Jia sensed his abnormality. She wanted to speak, trying to use words to hypnotize him. But what she didn't expect was that before she could open her mouth. Swoosh! A poker card flew over, cutting her face sharply. Fan Jia's face turned pale. She watched as the person stood up slowly with the photo. Even her eyes were trembling. She couldn't believe it. No one could decipher the hypnosis. This was impossible, absolutely impossible. But the coldness emitted from the man made Fan Jia truly feel fear. The poker card in his fingertips slashed at her again. This time, it cut her wrist. Fan Jia had never been so close to death. She could tell that he really wanted to kill her. The moment he walked out of the light, Fan Jia knew that she was doomed. That wasn't the gaze of someone who was controlled by hypnosis. Instead, he used to be cold, aloof, and aloof. Fan Jia took a few steps back. To her, he wasn't a god, but a devil. The way he looked at her did not have a single trace of warmth. It was as cold as when he had first exposed her. His indifferent tone was as cold as when he had first exposed her. "You want to imitate her?" That time, Fan Jia had almost been unable to escape. Because of that, she hated Z even more. She had thought of many ways to kill her. But that person had always been like this, haunting her like a ghost. Fan Jia gritted her teeth and took a deep breath. "I did everything because I like you. Why can't you pity me?" Qin Mo's voice was calm. "After killing someone and snatching their things, you still say you are pitiful. Heh, why should I give my pity to someone who isn't even comparable to a beast?" Fan Jia reached out and covered her ears. "I just like you, I just like you. How can you say that? Do you want to say that you are innocent?" Qin Mo rotated the poker card in his hand slowly. Fan Jia raised her hand. "Am I wrong?" You can go to hell and ask those who died because of you. Aren't they all innocent? Chin Mo moved. The sound of another poker card rang out. Fan Jia's other wrist was also cut. She suddenly realized that both her hands were going to be crippled. How can you be so ruthless? Fan Jia's face twisted. Why don't you just kill me? Chin Mo lifted his eyelids. My hands are only for killing. You aren't worthy. When Fan Jia heard the last sentence, she seemed to have gone crazy. But right at this moment, Chin Mo gestured towards the outside. A group of plainclothes policemen rushed in from the outside. He reached out and pressed her down. Fan Jia struggled. Kill me if you can, kill me. Life in prison suits you better than if I kill you. Chin Mo glanced sideways, his eyes cold. Don't worry, you won't die and you won't come out. Don't you like to drown? Try it in prison. Fan Jia's expression changed. She understood what he meant. He wanted her to experience death every day. He had crippled her arms so that she wouldn't be able to fight back in prison. What kind of place was prison? It was a place where people were eaten without spitting out the bones. Fan Jia must have cried too much. One of the plainclothes men shook his head. That's quite pitiful. Chin Mo tilted his head and glanced over. Do you find her pitiful? I just think that the murderer is pitiful. Since she is already dead, why should she pay with her life? Do you know the difference between humans and beasts? Humans have hearts and understand why the spirits in heaven feel uneasy. They also understand what it means to repay a debt of blood with blood. If you really find her pitiful, let me give you my blessings. I hope that no one will avenge you when the person closest to you is thrown into the sea. The plainclothes man glared, turning to retort. However, he realized that the person was dressed in a military uniform. It was young Master Tang. It was young Master Tang, smiling brightly as usual. I didn't know. Nowadays, people in the system take the victim's place and say that the murderer is pitiful. Fan Jia has killed many people, including our comrades. If you are worried about her life in prison, you can pack your things and move to prison. You can still take care of her. Isn't that great? The plainclothes man froze. When he saw that the side profile didn't look like he was joking, cold sweat drenched his entire back. Chin Mo stood in front of young Master Tang. Both of them were tall and slender, but one of them was in a military uniform while the other was in a trench coat. Their styles were completely different. In front of them, Fan Jia's methods couldn't be used at all. I have something on. Chin Mo glanced up, speaking to young Master Tang. I can't go back with you. He knew it. Young Master Tang reached out, caressing his temples. How many days? After the Asian Cup. Chin Mo's voice didn't change. Young Master Tang arched a brow. You know I'm in charge of this case. If it had been someone else, he wouldn't have reacted in such a manner. Who else would want to arrest me other than you? Chin Mo's tone sounded as though he was talking about the weather. Young Master Tang laughed. Young Master Chin, you are mistaken. Do I look like someone who would kick someone when they are down? Chin Mo was nonchalant, but his gaze was fixed on young Master Tang. Young Master Tang seems to have misunderstood yourself. His gaze didn't escape young Master Tang's eyes. Besides, Chin Mo didn't intend to hide it. Forget it, just treat it as my gift to Zi's dowry. Young Master Tang moved to the left and opened up a path. At the same time, the plainclothes officers also put away their guns. Fan Jia didn't want to be locked up in jail, she would rather die. But there was always reincarnation. Just like what young Master Tang had said, someone had to do something for the souls who had died unjustly. for those who had their possessions taken away, to receive justice. Of course, selfish people would always find excuses for themselves. They would distort the truth and lie. When they were young, they would claim other people's possessions as their own in order to gain attention. When they grew up, they could live with a clear conscience even after causing someone's death. Anyway, they would be forgiven after a long time. Anyway, there would be a whole bunch of people who would offend them. But similarly, in this world, there would always be a group of people who knew to be in awe. Just like what Mandela had said, if the sky was dark, they would survive in the dark. If they didn't have the strength to shine, they would curl up in the corner. Don't defend the darkness just because you are used to it. Don't be proud of yourself. Don't mock those who are braver and more passionate than you. We can be as lowly as dust but not as twisted as maggots. The sky would always brighten, no matter how dark it used to be. In the past, Bojo wouldn't have believed this. Because when she was alone, it was too hard. No one could understand what she was saying, much less understand why she was disappointed. But in the end, there would always be someone who would hug her gently when she was sad, asking her in a low voice, "Are you an idiot?" Bojo felt that she would never be able to find such a person, so venomous and gentle. She had thought about it many times. A pure white person couldn't be a light source. Because they were too weak, they couldn't withstand the slightest wave. Unlike that person, who was like the Kunlun Mountains. Not only could he light up the lights, but he could also create the shadows of the sun and moon. Hence, she liked him so much. Bojo knew that she was losing consciousness. She leaned her head against the steering wheel, feeling a little angry. Just as she was about to move, she realized that the car door had been pulled open. The next moment, there was a slightly cold embrace. Bojo couldn't open her eyes, but her nose worked. The familiar peppermint and tobacco scent made her feel that she was in a daze from the fever. That was why she had the illusion of being hugged. Or perhaps she missed someone too much. That was what Bojo told herself. Her forehead was pressed against a slightly cold object. The next moment, he hugged her tighter. Before she could figure out what was going on, a familiar voice came from beside her ear. A familiar voice entered her ears. "Little Bojo." "MH?" He was calling her name. "Are you an idiot?" Chinemo was angry at himself. Since he had regained his memory, of course he knew why she had such a high fever. He leaned forward and touched her forehead. His chest felt like it was being burned by the temperature. Bojo frowned. She didn't want to be called an idiot when she was sick. Besides, was it really the Almighty? No matter how she thought about it, it didn't seem possible. With that thought in mind, she wanted to move. However, someone was one step ahead of her and pressed her hand down, trapping her in a warm embrace. As if afraid that she would be frozen, the person pulled her hand and stuffed it into his clothes. Her palm was pressed against his skin, and her fingertips were no longer cold. Bojo didn't see his face. She didn't know that the high and mighty young Master Chin was using such a method to warm her up. The only person who knew was the Lamborghini, Little Blackie. It really couldn't see anymore. What surprised it was that the devil usually looked cold and didn't smell like a human. He actually used such a method to warm up his master. It must be cold outside. He grabbed her hand and stuffed it into his clothes. It was to make his master feel better. *CK, even it believed that the devil had true love for its master. It was indeed true love. Because faintly, there was a soft, faint voice. "I'm sorry. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.